fantastic. This is GT racing right now.
He's got traction, he's got rid of the outside of both of them! Maloney!
Oh, he's taken Anderson! Anderson's up top here!
Oh my god!
Big crash! Oh my goodness, half the field's gonna get rolled!
Six is very close. These guys are want to make their way through the field very quickly.
Oh, there we go!
Oh no! That's massive! This is it! This is over! I can't believe this! Oh my god!
God, what?
Travis Pastrana here. iRacing, Climb to the Clouds, Mount Washington Hill Climb available now. Check it out.
Well, the V8 SCOPS Enduro season is in full swing, and we come to the second of them this weekend, the 500 kilometres of Phillip Island. Of course, before we get into V8 SCOPS action this Sunday, we first have to go through the V8 SCOPS support series here on Friday night, presented by racingsims.co.nz. We've got two series up for you tonight, the V8s and the Legends, the old Australian touring cars, the Holden Commodore and the Ford Falcon, plus the Legends Ford 34 Coupes in a very short 10-minute race around here, the Phillip Island circuit, round 11 of V8 SCOPS support series. We are well into the season now, and the V8's championship is looking just as competitive as it always has been. My name's Reese Gardner here on SimSpeed TV. Joining me in the commentary box is Cameron Dance. Once again, Cam, we are together in the comms box, and this time it's at Phillip Island where we can get some lovely V8 action.
Yeah, absolutely. And every time we come here, we're expecting a very, very good race, and we always get one as well. So it's going to be really cool to see what's going to happen tonight. Times are very, very close as well between pretty much majority of the field. So it's going to be a very, very close night of racing.
It's a classic Australian venue, Phillip Island, built in the early 1960s. And very simple in terms of layout from the air at least, but when you're out there on the track, it is anything but simple. 12 turns here with some incredible fast corners and heavy braking zones, which really test the abilities of the drivers out there. And pit exit is going to be an issue as well, because we have a pit stop tonight in the V8 series. There's certainly great overtaking opportunities at Honda, at MG as well. And Cam, you can certainly pull a great defensive move at turn 2 Southern Loop, as well as at places like Lukey Heights.
Yeah, there's a lot of places to overtake, and there's also a lot of places to defend as well. Like you mentioned, the likes of Turn 1, Southern Loop, and a few others where you can get very, very defensive and also hold on for that, well, hold off the position from the guy behind. So it's going to be very, very important to make sure that you pick your lines very well, and also pick your spots to overtake and defend as well, because the last thing you want to do is set yourself up for losing a position 2 corners later.
Absolutely. Turn 3, Stoner, which you see over on the right of your screen, and turn 12 over on the left are going to be two of the most difficult turns here in the V8s. Of course, well over 600 horsepower, locked differential, and 1,500 kilograms of weight through these fast corners. Definitely requires a lift into the final turn, maybe just flat out through Stoner. Race distances, 100 kilometers for both races tonight in the V8s. You must pit for 4 tyres in either race, and we are expecting that drivers will be stopping for fuel as well. And of course, the grid for race 2 set by the finishing order of race 1. So it's going to be some short and sweet races here tonight, Cam, but strategy is going to play its part. With Phillip Island's pit speed limit, though, of 72 kilometers per hour, you tend to lose less time at this circuit than you do at others. As we check out the championship standings here, Aaron Gilbert by only 60 points over Henry King. The championship is still alive here.
Yeah, absolutely is. And it's been a very, very fierce fight between Gilbert and King all season long as well, with them trading wins and podiums and results throughout the season at various different locations. Mazomo there in third hasn't had really all that strong of a season, but he's had some consistent results. So he's managed to find himself inside that top three and with a pretty solid buffer over the likes of Green and Cox, who round out the top five. And then gets a little bit closer as you go back to Tom O'Connor, Nathan Trengarthen in 6th and 7th, and Daniel Stevens, Simon Yella, and Reece Harnell scrapping it out for the final spots in the top 10.
Indeed, and surprise, surprise, guess who the top two are in this practice session? It's Aaron Gilbert and Henry King, our two championship contenders. Let's see how well they do out here tonight. Just going through the southern loop now it seems Aaron Gilbert right there. I was just checking to see who it was on my end, but I was on replay. So it's been a difficult couple of days for me. I've been having some PC issues, which means I'm a little bit running on the ragged edge. But both of our championship contenders are out there doing their laps, making sure that everything is in order here in the qualifying session. 7 minutes to go in this 20-minute session. And as soon as the conditions out there, we are morning here at Phillip Island, so the drivers will have to deal with the rising sun coming out of turn 2. Of course, also means that the track temperature is going to be nice and low as well. It's actually 18 degrees track temperature out there. The air temp only a degree cooler. So, Cam, these drivers are going to have a lot of grip out there, but when they lose it, they're going to lose everything.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's going to be very much on the ragged edge as a result of it being as gripped up as it possibly can be. So all these drivers are going to be pushing extremely hard to try and extract the maximum possible lap time out of their cars as they can, with it being so grippy as well. And the fact that there's a lot of rubber down as well is going to be helping in that department. So they'll have to be very careful to stay online and not get offline because of the fact that there's going to be so much marbles out there.
Jason Spriggs we take a look at in P4 in the qualifying session at the moment. He's taking that wider line coming into the penultimate turn, and that's one of the places where you can certainly mix things up. Looks like Spriggs actually deciding to go for the pits here. The no escape rule is active as it is in all of our V8SCOPS related events. This is our Zoom feed at the moment. We've got Reece Harnell and Rob Carmichael up on the top of your screen. In the bottom left is Simon Mazomo. In the bottom right is Daniel Stevens, who's currently P5. Simon Mazomo, P3 in the championship. So he's still got quite a bit to fight for here tonight. He's currently 17th in qualifying though, so he's going to have to. He's got a little bit more work to do to get himself up the order. And Reece Harnell's jersey that he's wearing is his professional speed QB team. It's the Mystics for gel balling. He actually does gel balling in the real world, does Reece Harnell. So good to see him repping the team in another sense, in another form of competition. Daniel Stevens, he's just gone to P2 in the qualifying session, and we were watching some of that lap on the Zoom feed. He is on fire at the moment, is the Middle Finger Racing driver from New Zealand. And I'm looking forward to seeing how well he does here tonight. He is the Trucking Legends Championship leader as well, Cam. So he's got a lot to fight for tonight too.
Yeah, he certainly does have a lot to fight for in the Trucking Legends, which is coming up very, very shortly after this first race. But he's done very, very well for himself in P2, and he's not that far off Aaron Gilbert as well. Less than a tenth of a second, in fact, less than half a tenth of a second between those two currently. So splitting the two Henry King Racing HJR cars at the moment. So he'll be trying his best to try and go a little bit quicker here and see if he can pit Gilbert, but running out of time and possibly not quite going to be getting there, but the fact he's back down on this lap.
Yeah, he's well and truly backed out of it, as Daniel. Meanwhile, going through Southern Loop, Nathan Trengarthen. He's currently 14th in the session at the moment. Has yet to set a time that I think he'd be entirely happy with, but Trengarthen's been a steady competitor in this series. And it seems well, he might be looking a little bit uncomfortable out there at the moment, just locking up a wheel going into the Honda hairpin. You know, braking performance, Cam, so important here at Phillip Island. You've got the heavy braking zones into the Honda hairpin and down into MG as well, but you've also got to have a car that is stable on brakes in the high-speed sections like up here at Lukey Heights. You don't want a car that gets away from you, be it front or rear grip loss on your way through these fast turns.
Yeah, absolutely, and very, very easy to make a mistake through that section as well, where it undulates and just falls and comes away from you as well, with the fact you've got that hump over the top of the hill and then coming on down into the deep braking zone as well. So you've got to be very, very careful on both the application of the throttle and also the application of the brake, which a corner that's quite deceiving and very, very easy to make a mistake, as we see Trengarthen go a little bit quicker, not by much, but no change position from there.
Indeed. So we check in with the 555 of Gavin Cox, Daniel Stevens' teammate at Middle Finger Racing, currently P5. So backing up, sorry, P4 rather, my apologies. I was about to say, oh, that's convenient, the 555 and P5, but hey, he's a position better. Always good to see. And overall, a pretty good result for Middle Finger Racing so far. Jason Spriggs to the end of a lap now, 1 minute 27.4, and that is going to be pole position. Wow, goodness, I could barely find the words. That just came out of nowhere. A great lap there from Spriggs, but Gilbert's still very close, with only a minute left, a minute 30 left in the session though. Aaron Gilbert just coming back into the pits. He's not going to be able to challenge that.
Yeah, he did actually improve on that previous lap that he did to do the 4.93, but unfortunately it wasn't quite enough with the fact that Spriggs came out of nowhere and put his cards on the table and walked away with a pole position at this stage, so long as nobody else pips him to pole. But very, very good lap from both drivers there to put themselves, improve, and also Spriggs to put himself on the pole for the current time, being Henry King. He's getting out of the way, trying to set himself up for one very final run on in this qualifying session, currently sitting fourth, just behind Daniel Stevens. So be trying to improve here and try and make it get one up on his teammate as well.
Indeed he will. So let's see Henry King's pace here, if he can improve on that P4 time. Henry King, a man who has provided an awful lot of service to the V8SCOPS championships over the years. A little bit of traffic for him through the opening part of the lap, but I'm sure he won't let it faze him. He's usually in race control for V8SCOPS and sometimes for the support series as well, but he is getting opportunities in the support series to get behind the wheel and really strut his stuff out there. Our race control tonight is going to be Ben Christensen and Sean Thompson. So if something happens out on track and there's a big enough incident, we'll see them jump out on track in the Porsche Cayman safety car here at V8SCOPS, and that will certainly shake things up if it comes out after, say, half the field has pitted.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing to remember as well is that you don't have to pit in both races. You can choose which race you want to pit in as well. So if we do see a safety car, we may see everybody pit in this race, but at the same time, some may start not for a different strategy. But at the same time, if we do not see a safety car in this race, but we see it in another one, some who have pitted in this race, this first race, may benefit a lot from those who pit in the second race. So it's going to be a very, very interesting strategy to see what's going to happen and who's going to do what.
Indeed, looked like King abandoned that lap. Daniel Flanagan not able to improve on his fastest P19 for the time being there for Daniel. Yeah, there's an awful lot to think about in terms of strategy for tonight. And a very good point you raised, Cam, regarding drivers only having to pit in one of the two races here tonight. So we might see a surprise winner out of this, depending on what everyone does. David Coleman, 29.5. He remains in P20 as the checkered flag is now out. And we're going to move through into the race session very, very shortly. But before we do, we'll go through the starting grid. Jason Spriggs with that mammoth time snatching pole position from Aaron Gilbert in the dying minutes of the session. They'll go off row 1. Daniel Stevens and Henry King will start off row 2 with Gavin Cox and Josh Burden on the third row. Josh, the highest qualifying of the three Fusion sim racing cars here tonight. Brett Hender, his teammate, starts on row 4 alongside Michael Whiting. It's Blake Delaney and Bobby Jovanovic on row 5. And I'll correct myself again, there are 4 Fusion sim racing cars in this one. Bobby Jovanovic, another one of them. Anthony Green and Tom O'Connor round out the top 12.
And you're going to go to row 7 with Chris Pellett and Nathan Trengarthen. Reese Harnell and Rob Carmichael will round out row 8 with Simon Mazzomo and Mark Noble on row 9, and then Daniel Flanagan and Daniel Coleman round out the top 20 on row 10, with the rest being at race control.
Indeed, looks like Corey Kitchen did register for the session, but he didn't set a time in practice or qualifying, so we shouldn't expect him on the grid. Of course, Thompson and Christensen there in race control. So 23 laps. That's a fifth the distance of the Phillip Island 500 that we're going to be running here on Sunday afternoon. So I think for a few drivers here, it's going to be a bit of preparation for the 500 on Sunday. But regardless, still going to be a massive challenge here to get it to the end, especially with how cold the tyres are going to be in these cold morning temperatures. There's a reminder of the format tonight. Both races the same distance, and drivers can choose which of those races they take their mandatory 4-tyre pit stop in. So, who is going to take their pit stop in this one? Will we see a safety car early on and see everyone dive into the lane right away? It's going to be an interesting one. We're just waiting now for the start lights to come up and we can go racing. Only 30 seconds left on the grid timer, and all of the drivers who have set times in qualifying are present on the grid. We just got race control waiting in the wings, keeping an eye on everything. They will be alerted if there's an incident out there. If they need to come out in the safety car, they will certainly do that. 10 seconds now until the lights come up and away we go. Goodness me, the tension on this grid, almost palpable. It's always very difficult to get one of these cars off the line. Let's see how the drivers do then as the revs rise and the flame spits out of the exhaust. The lights are up and we are away. And that's a very good initial launch there from Jason Spriggs, but someone in the back of the grid has had a very tough time. We've already got a car in the grass and falling down the order. Anthony Green and the Falcon that got rear-ended was Chris Pellett of Fusion Sim Racing. It looked like he ended up stalling off the grid, either not able to get into gear or just bogged down, as they are now into Southern Loop for the first time. Bit of side-by-side running in the mid-pack. Brett Hender trying to defend from Michael Whiting. Daniel Stevens is going to take advantage of Whiting's bad exit from the Southern Loop, and it's going to give him the inside run into the Honda hairpin. There goes Daniel Stevens up the inside, trying his best to take the 6th position here from Michael Whiting, and it looks like he might just manage it on the exit, but Whiting's still going to be alongside, and up the front it looks pretty calm. But all of the fighting here in the mid-pack as Stevens is shuffled wide by Michael Whiting, and they have to fall into single file as they come through Hayshed. Blake Delaney and David Coleman side by side coming into Hayshed as well. This is getting very intense as the front of the field is now up into Lukey Heights, and already seeing some big pressuring here for Joshua Burden. Actually looks to me like Aaron Gilbert has retaken the lead of the race here from Jason Spriggs. Burden has found himself into 3rd place. That is a 3-position gain for Burden on the first lap, but he's getting pressured massively by P2 in the championship, Henry King.
Yes, he's getting massively pressured at the moment. It's a very, very good move by Gilbert to get that lead off Spriggs on the way into turn 1, went around the outside, so very, very nice move there as they're still fighting further back, but looking to try and go around the outside as Henry King, but it's going to be no move. Maybe he's going to try and set the exit up for a good run on the way down towards the Honda here, but it's looking like he's done very, very well to do that as they're going to head on the way down towards the hairpin through turn 3. We're going to have a replay on the right hand side thanks to virtual racing. No move going to be made from Henry King. this time by and just stalling on the grid as well by the looks of it. Unfortunately, was Anthony Green, so unfortunately he's ended up with a bit of damage to that car as well.
Yeah, that was Chris Pellet in the Falcon who got rear-ended after stalling on the grid. We just got another view of that there. So, moving very swiftly on. Moving very swiftly through Hayshed are these drivers. Riding on board with Tom O'Connor, the last driver fighting within the top 10, 11 positions. We're actually looking back for Bobby Jovanovic on that occasion. And Tom O'Connor having to defend massively from this big line of cars. He's got Blake Delaney up behind him. Then you've got the likes of Reese Harnell, David Coleman, Simon Mazzomo, who's just managed to get a move done on Gavin Cox, Rob Carmichael pressuring him, as well as that's Daniel Flanagan with heavy damage at MG. I don't know if that's been contact with another car. No, it actually looks like he's lost it on his own, and he already had a huge amount of damage, I would presume, from the contact on lap 1 with Chris Pellet on the grid.
So not a great start for Flanagan, unfortunately, ending up in the wall side by side on the way down towards the hairpin. Henry King is going to be on the outside for the hairpin, but is not going to get that move done on Burden, and Burden's going to hold on to the place for the time being for one more lap at least. In the background, though, Daniel Stevens getting moved done on Michael Whiting as well. Though it's looking like it's going to be a repeat of lap 1, because he's going to try and go around the outside, but not going to be happening.
It's a slight tap there between Henry King and Josh Burdeners, wide in Siberia, and into the gravel trap is David Coleman, actually. Going for a good old trip through the sand pit. He managed to keep it out of the wall, only just missing it, as just behind him it was side by side between Carmichael and Cox, and oh dear, looks like it might be continuing here, down into MG. Look at that, my goodness, that's side by side there between Stevens and Whiting. The teammates both battling very hard for their respective positions. Whiting continuing to hold on to that position, which is only giving an advantage here to Josh Burden. Bobby Jovanovic actually is the Fusion Sim Racing car behind these two, as Stevens pulls out of the draft, going for the move at turn 1. You can fit two cars side by side through here, and the car on the inside will have the advantage, but the same is also true for Southern Loop, as you see Whiting continue to stake his claim for that position on Daniel Stevens. Stevens, though, running a little wide, getting on the throttle a little earlier. They both got to be wary of Bobby Jovanovic here, as, oh dear, Reese Harnell way off into the sticks, and I think that is at Southern Loop.
On the way in on the brakes, and very, very easy to do, as Cox is going to try and get a move on. Oh, that's contact to himself and Mazzomo, and that's not gone the way that Mazzomo will have hoped, and he's going to lose 2 positions out of that, as Rob Carmichael's all over the back of Gavin Cox now as they get through Hayshed and up towards Loogie Heights. Carmichael going to try and set up a move here, but not quite going to be close enough, I don't think.
Yeah, Simon Mazzomo, I think, lost it by himself there. He just locked the rears, as we get 2 views here from the perspective of Rob Carmichael. You see the concentration in his face here, and you can't see his hands, but you can tell how much he's soaring away at the wheel there to try and keep that car going straight. Get back on the throttle, out of the final turn, and down the front stretch once again. It's going to be pretty intense. Coming through to the last few laps of this one. If he can catch back up to Gavin Cox, it'll be depending on Gavin making a mistake, as Chris Pellet brings it into the lane. He's got plenty of damage on that car, no rear wing, and I think the fuel cell might be a bit damaged there, so he's going to have to bring it in. Blake Delaney, meanwhile, having a bit of an off. That's at the exit of Southern Loop, which is a very common place to make a mistake. So there's been plenty of mixed fortunes all throughout the field here, as have a look at this. Mr. Jovanovic, number 89, around the outside into Siberia, taking 8th position off Nathan Trengarthen and holding it. But I think for Jovanovic's teammate, Chris Pellet, bringing it into the pit lane, a wise decision. The point I was going to make is he seems a bit too damaged to really get a good result out of this one, so I guess he's figured I might as well take my mandatory pit stop in this race. As, a bit of a move from Nathan Trengarthen, but Jovanovic holds strong there and continues to hold on to 8th place. Tom O'Connor as well having a good old go too.
He is right on the tail of these guys, and then possibly just got spooked a little bit on the way out of MG, so didn't quite managed to stay on top of them, but through the forward, King and Burton still going at it at the moment. King hasn't found his way on by just yet on Burton, possibly playing the long game, trying to set up a move and trying to wait for Burton's tyres to possibly go off a little bit before he pounces and gets that move done, but he's continued to apply pressure and bucket loads over these last few laps and has not let up at all.
King's going to be thinking about the championship here because Aaron Gilbert, having gotten into the lead on lap 1, he has the advantage, and with 2 cars in between himself and King, well, Henry is going to be dealing with an even bigger gap to the championship lead after this race if he can't get by Burden and Spriggs at some point. But Burden is proving a very tough nut to crack here. Henry King harassing the rear bumper of the Fusion Sim Racing driver. Certainly holding very strong in the number 35 as, oh no, just as I say that I might have put the commentator's curse on Birdo, sorry mate, but seems a little bit of a slide there, and King trying around the outside in the penultimate turn. They're going to be side by side coming into the last turn. Burden is going to have the advantage though. He does, he will have to wash out and carry a bit less speed down the straight, but looks like the pressure is certainly on. Henry King not able to take advantage of the over-under out of the final turn, so he's going to have to wait a little bit longer to try and make this move work.
Yeah, nearly had it done, but unfortunately that mistake from Burden backed them up a little bit, and then King trying to go around the outside of the final corner probably didn't quite help him as he ran a little bit too deep and compromised the exit and run all the way into turn 1. I did wonder if he was maybe going to be able to close up enough and have a little bit of a sneaky look up the inside of turn 1, but decided just think better of it. But what this has done is brought Rick here and Andrew Stevens back in this battle, as well as Michael White, and not too far back in as well. So this is really turning into a 4-car battle for what is effectively the final spot on the podium.
Yeah, this is fantastic as we check back with Mazomo and Carmichael. And Rob is right on the back of Simon here. Almost on the verge of giving him a couple of love taps into a few of these corners. Through Hayshed, maybe a little bit of aero disturbance, a little bit of push, and try your best to keep the weight on the fronts, preserve those tyres, look after them as there's a move just up ahead. A little bit of side-by-side running there. But for the time being, it seems the positions are staying relatively the same. Tom O'Connor actually getting past Nathan Trengarthen, and Gavin Cox now right on the back of Trengarthen himself as we check on board with these drivers. Coming out of the final turn there is Trengarthen and Cox from the rear view mirror. Trengarthen moving over to take the racing line into turn 1. Tom O'Connor leading the turn in a little bit late, but he manages to keep the position. Coming into Southern Loop, runs a little bit wide in the mid-corner, but Cam, Southern Loop is one of those corners that you can afford to do that on. Oh dear.
Yes, it certainly is. Oh dear, as it's a bit of a moment, and side by side now through turn 3 and into turn 4. Cox going to try and get around the outside at the hairpin on Trengarthen. He runs a little bit deep, actually had to back out of it, and that's allowed Mazomo up the inside to get up alongside. He's going to out-drag Cox out of the corner and take that position off him, so that sequence of 2 corners so far has not gone the way of Gavin Cox.
Yeah, I don't think it's gone the way of many drivers tonight. There's been quite a few having issues here in the cold temperatures with wayward handling and the like, so hopefully in the second race they have a bit of a better time of it. I presume it's a little later in the day for the second race here tonight is down into MG. They continue to pressure each other massively. Simon Mazomo holding station, but Nathan Trengarthen, a very slight poor exit out of the penultimate turn, and maybe just half a car's width wide at the apex of the final turn as well. So a couple of kinks showing in Nathan Trengarthen's armour. Mazomo is too far back to take advantage though, so he's going to have to wait again for a move. He'll have to try and nail the exit of Southern Loop and go for a move into Honda if he wants to get this done. Or Nathan Trengarthen could run wide and allow Simon Mazomo alongside on the exit of Southern Loop, and that's going to be move pretty much completed.
You're doing a very, very good job at doing commentators' curse tonight, Reese, I must admit, with the fact Mazomo got that move done, but Trengarthen's going to try and come back at him at the inside, going a little bit defensive on the cars behind as well, so he's not going to get passed by Gavin Cox this time, although Cox looks very aggressively up the inside on the way into Siberia, and that's compromised his exit and allowed Rob Carmichael to get right onto the tail of that little train as well. Meanwhile, Mazomo's starting to pull away from these guys with how hard they're battling, and probably what he needed as well, with the fact he's been stuck in the thick of that action for the last few laps. So having some clean air now is Mazomo to try and hunt down the likes of O'Connor and Jovanovic.
Oh, Nathan Trengarthen though running a little bit wide there in Lukey Heights, and that allows Gavin Cox to run to the back of him again. We'll check back in though with the battle for third. Josh Burden and Henry King, they dropped Daniel Stevens a bit, and the battle between Brett Hender and Michael Whiting has dropped off the back of this as well. As a bit of a look here from Henry King coming into turn one. It's not usually a passing opportunity in most circumstances, but you can certainly throw a surprise on someone if you play your cards right. There is a move there. That's Cox and Trengarthen side by side, and there is Cox getting the move done on Nathan, and Rob Carmichael sees the opportunity. Oh, just enough space on the inside to keep himself in there with a chance at 12th position, but Trengarthen gets on the throttle a bit earlier. Meanwhile, actually looks like Henry King has made the move on Josh Burden, but Burden's going to make the move back here at Siberia, the banked left-hander. King around the outside. He's going to have the inside for Hayshed. These guys have been battling so hard all race, and remember, we've still got a pit stop to think about here as King almost gets it massively crossed up through Hayshed. Burden's going to force the issue here. King leaves him just enough room, but King on the throttle a little bit earlier gets the move done, and finally back up into third. Not a moment too soon.
Yeah, very, very good move. I did wonder if there was a little bit of a bump on the exit of Lukey Heights as well from the man who now is in fourth place, Joshua Burden, on Henry King. But we'll see if Burden's going to be able to try and come back at Henry King in the next few laps. I imagine he'll try and put up a good fight, but meanwhile just behind as well, Hender and Whiting's still going in it at the moment, and Hender has actually had that move. Actually lost the place to Whiting as well on that previous lap, so I'm trying to get that back as well.
Yeah, Brett's now back in the position he started in. It was a good first few laps for the Fusion Sim Racing guys, making up some good positions, but it seems as the race has gone on and other drivers have gotten into their rhythms, they've started to go for it and make those moves. But I think Josh Burden can still be happy with fourth at the moment, still 2 positions up from where he started. Daniel Stevens, meanwhile, who's starting to really reel him in through Siberia, he's lost 2 positions from where he started, so he'll want to try and get them back ASAP. It seems for the moment Josh Burden has what it takes to keep Daniel Stevens behind. Simon Mazomo was saying to us before we went live that you only get 2 laps really on these tyres before they start really dropping off in terms of grip. So I think at the moment everyone's just trying their best to look after these bits of rubber connecting them to the road.
Yeah, they won't be feeling their best, especially 11 laps into this 23 lap race. So it's very much all about looking after your tyres at this point. Probably don't want to be overdriving them, doing stuff like locking up and spinning your wheels. You want to be just being nice and smooth and being patient. No need to be overly aggressive just yet. You want to leave them for right at the end when you can use them when you need to.
Yes, indeed. Well, we've already got a few takers on pit lane for a scheduled pit stop. An MFR car, I would assume that's Gavin Cox, and indeed it is. Rob Carmichael joining him in the lane. These two very close in the battle, and looks like Carmichael already done there with that stop. A very quick stop for the both of them. 10.4 seconds, which is what you'd expect with 4 tyres being changed. Maybe they could have afforded to put a little bit of fuel in the car as well, maybe run a bit light in the first part of the race. So unless everyone else pits now, they will have given up those positions for this race, but they'll certainly have a chance to come back in race 2. They won't need to pit again tonight.
Yes, they've got their pit stop out of the way. Being down the order, probably not a silly idea to get your pit stop out of the way, especially if you're not having a great race at this stage, to just get that pit stop out of the way and get the pain of having to go down the lane as well out of the way early, as we see Burden heading down into the lane as well. So he's jumped out of what would effectively be a very, very good position to decide to get his pit stop out of the way early.
Yeah, that's interesting. Pitting from P4. Let's see if the rest of the guys around him decide to respond to that. So check out Josh Burden's pit stop time in a second once he exits the box. But it seems times have been pretty consistent in terms of pits, and Burden actually with the fastest pit stop so far of 9.6 seconds. He has absolutely nailed that. But has he cost himself a top 5 finish in race 1?
Yeah, if nobody else does pit, then I'd say it's probably likely he's not going to get a decent result. He might get a top 10, but that'll be about it, as we see Nathan Trengarthen off the road at Southern Loop. We'll get a virtual racing school replay to see what's actually happened there, whether he's done it on his own or whether he's had contact. Looks like he's just done it on his own on the way in there. Just locked the inside front, and unfortunately off the road he's gone, which is very, very easy to do, as we've seen many, many a time at this track.
Yeah, braking and turning at the same time for Southern Loop. Very easy to lock up that inside front tyre, but Trengarthen is still out there, still going in 11th position, and we see highlighted in sort of a purple, red, mauve sort of colour all of the drivers that have pitted in this race on the timing screen. As Carmichael and Cox battling hard. Cox was ahead in the pit lane, so there must have been a move there, unless Carmichael was able to get the run out of the pit lane. Either way, these two battling very hard now for 13th and 14th, and Cox has a brief look here at the inside of MG. It's not going to work though. Slight lock up from Rob Carmichael. The battle is on, the heat is on, and these drivers with fresh rubber, they're going to try their best to make up bulk time here. Of course, Joshua Burden, the car ahead of them, that is also pitted, and we'll get a readout on what their lap times are really like here. 29.4 for Carmichael, 29.3 for Gavin Cox as he goes for the move at turn 1. Carmichael leaves him the room, but remains ahead on the run into Southern Loop.
Yeah, and we'll hold on to that position as you have the inside for Southern Loop. Cox not really able to put up any sort of fight there, unfortunately, trying to get around the outside, but it's looking like he's got a pretty decent exit out of Southern Loop, so he might be able to get a move done on the way into the hairpin. Did actually back out of it a little bit there to make sure he was able to get the car through turn 3, but unfortunately that's compromised him, and he's not going to be able to get the move done at the hairpin or Siberia for that matter.
Yeah, Cox just too far back to make any kind of move work at the moment. As there's another problem for Trengarthen, and oh my goodness, Josh Burden got a big old scare there as you see Bobby Jovanovic also in the pits. Now that's 3 of the 4 Fusion Sim Racing cars that have made their way into the lane so far. Pellet's back out on track meanwhile after his incident at the start of the race, so I think this might be a bit of a strategic call here for Fusion Sim Racing. Get their pit stops out of the way in race 1, and then they'll be able to get a potentially very good result in the second race here tonight. The number 10 there of Brett Hender, now the lead Fusion Sim Racing car. So the night's still not over for these guys.
Yeah, it's absolutely not. They have a very, very good advantage. So long as the race goes their way in race 2, that is not the way that the track goes for Anthony Green. Unfortunately, it looks like he's had some form of I'd say a technical issue of some kind, possibly done it on his own. We'll get a Retro Racing School replay and find out what's actually happened there. Coming through the final corner, and he's just run a little bit wide, very, very easy to do, and straight into the inside wall. Lucky not to actually get collected by anyone on the way through, but unfortunately not the way that he will have hoped to have gone through there.
No, certainly not. The final turn is one of the worst places to have that happen, because he just went past pit entry at that point. He's going to have to make it all the way around there. Actually, it seems he's stopped out on track, is Anthony, and we might get a safety car out of this. If he's stopped by the side of the track here at the fastest point of the circuit, got to keep an eye out here for the safety car to make an appearance. He will be asking for a tow from race control. It looks like Nathan Trengarthen is in the pits, and Ben Christensen, here we go. He's showing up as orange on my timing screen as Ben Christensen, so that means the safety car is coming out of the pits, and here we are, Cam. We can expect literally everyone to come into the lane here.
Yeah, everybody who hasn't pitted it yet is more than likely going to come down onto the lane this time by Aaron Gilbert, just coming it through Loogie Heights now. So the safety car is going to be waiting patiently for the leader to come on through. And effectively at this stage, I'd say the leader is more than likely going to end up being Joshua Burden.
Well, we'll see how this goes. The 222 having to slow down there, Reese Harnell.
Gilbert and Spriggs have stayed out though. Very, very interesting strategy call by those two. Henry King has come down onto the lane, as well as Daniel Stevens, Michael Whiting, Brett Hender. Everybody else has stayed out Mizomo into the lane. So interesting calls from a lot of drivers to stay out, especially those who haven't pitted yet.
Yeah, well, Aaron Gilbert, Jason Spriggs and Tom O'Connor going to assume the top three positions here at the moment. Stevens and King now out of the pits. Pretty much 10, 11 seconds for the both of them. The only other driver to not pit is Mark Noble, who's currently in P9, and he might overtake Simon Mizomo momentarily. Actually, yes, he's overtaken them all and assumed P4 here behind the safety car with only 7 laps to go. You know, I think at this point the top 4, they've committed to this strategy by this point, Cam. If they decide to pit after this, they're just going to lose bulk positions with everyone else already having taken their stop, and they're going to have a bad grid spot for race 2. So I think the big idea here for Gilbert, Spriggs, O'Connor and Noble is to try and get the best start they can in race 2, pull out as much of a gap as they can, and just hope that they don't lose much time in the pit stop.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, and they're really going to struggle off this restart and these last few laps as well, because of the fact that they're on the oldest tyres of everybody else behind who have already pitted. So it's going to be very, very tough for a lot of these guys who haven't pitted to actually hold off those behind on new tyres, and some of those in that midfield as well have already pitted, so they're going to be on slightly older tyres than those around them, the likes of Carmichael and Cox and a few others on used tyres, whereas the likes of Mizomo and all of those who have pitted are on brand new tyres. So it's going to be interesting to see what's going to happen off this restart and who's going to end up actually winning this race.
Indeed. The drivers on the newest tyres are Mizomo, as Cam mentioned, but also Henry King, Daniel Stevens, Michael Whiting, Brett Hender, and that seems to be all of the drivers that have just pitted there. Next oldest tyres is Bobby Jovanovic, along with Nathan Trengarthen and David Coleman. Their tyres are 2 laps old. We've still got a lap here behind the safety car because Anthony Green still there on the front stretch. And he's been waiting quite a while, as has been the KRF driver, for that approval to tow, but he should get it once the field pull by him here. You'll see them come into view now. There's Christensen in the Porsche safety car, then Gilbert, then Spriggs, O'Connor and Noble, your top 4. Very nice shot here. Get a bit of a tour through of the entire field. Well, I suppose with the safety car, I would assume coming in at the end of this lap, once Green gets off the circuit, it's going to be very important for Aaron Gilbert to get this restart, because he's going to have to pull out as much of a gap as he can. You mentioned, Cam, the old tyres that the top 4 are on. Well, if he doesn't absolutely nail the restart and get that gap, then he's going to be absolutely swamped by the drivers on newer tyres behind.
Yeah, so it's going to be very, very fascinating to see what he's going to do in terms of when he decides to go off this restart, as he's got full control over the field, as to when he decides to put the pedal to the middle. Obviously, can't pass before the start-finish line, but can have overlaps. So some of these guys will be trying to game the restart here, especially those on new tyres for those around them.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all about surprising your opponent, psyching them out on that initial acceleration phase, because the more you gain off that initial restart, the harder it's going to be for the driver behind you to get all of that back. It's those crucial few moments when you first put the power down and first get that gap. Those are the most important parts. It seems I wonder if we can confirm that the safety car will be coming in at the end of this lap. It looks like Anthony Green is now back in the pits and the track is clear. So yes, I think we can assume that we will be getting a restart on this lap here in the racingsims.co.nz V8SCOPS support series at Phillip Island. It's been an interesting one here, and we've still got half the night to go, more than half actually. We've got the Trucking Legends race after this, and then race 2 of V8s, where these guys, your top 4, are going to have to pit, having not taken their mandatory stop in this race. It's basically giving a free kick to everyone around them. And tell you what, that could certainly help bring the championship swing back into Henry King's favour.
Yeah, it certainly could bring it back into his favour, although still got a few laps to get things done, and if all goes his way, he will end up with the championship points that he needs. But if not, he may end up finding that he's going to have to use race 2 as a little bit of a recovery mission if things don't go his way. And we'll see what's going to happen here off this restart. Though as Gilbert goes very, very early, very surprised that he actually decided to do that. Would have thought he would have gone a lot later, but he's built himself a nice little gap over Spriggs and everybody else, managing to get a very, very clean restart as well.
Here we go then, back to racing conditions, and Gilbert will lead the way into turn 1. Jason Spriggs second, Pellet, a lapped car in the midst of it all, as it's on between King and Noble, leading the cars that have pitted. Noble, of course, one of the drivers to not pit, and actually not getting the best restarters. There's a bit of a clutter behind. Joshua Burton having to back out of it. That allows Daniel Stevens on the outside as Henry King is around, and that is big contact between himself and Michael Whiting in the gravel trap coming up towards Honda. My goodness, what on earth happened there? Did King, sorry, that was Chris Pellet that spun on the side of the circuit. He actually caught the grass. And so I think Michael Whiting's going to be very unhappy with that turn of events. This might be another safety car, Cam.
I'd say it's probably going to end up with another safety car with what's going on. And if we do get another safety car, it's an absolute blessing in disguise for that top 4 who have not pitted yet. And safety car has been called. So the top 4 have just had their entire races saved.
Or have they? I mean, it's going to be another few laps here. We'll have to wait and see, as that was just the replay of the incident. You know, Chris Pellet trying his best to stay out of the way there. It's very difficult to be a lapped car on a restart with a huge field of cars bearing down on you, but it just seems Pellet, he was a little bit too far over to the right, just lost the rear. He did well to get on the brakes and try to straighten it up, but Whiting was approaching just too fast, and there wasn't exactly anywhere for Whiting to go on the left-hand side. So, all up, a very unfortunate incident there for Mr. Whiting. He could potentially have been on for a very strong top 10 finish there, but it's all going to come to naught. I will say, Cam, I think you are right. The top four, or basically the top two now, with Mark Noble having fallen down the order. Still, it's yeah, I'm not too sure. I mean, Aaron Gilbert and Jason Spriggs, they've certainly got less time now for the rest of the drivers to catch up once they restart again. But remember, they are still going to have to pit in race 2. So, I mean, Gilbert might still hold on for this win, but race 2 is going to be painful.
Yeah, very much is going to be painful. So we'll see what they do as far as strategy goes. But you can't not stay out at this point, especially if you're in first or second, because it's just such important track position. Obviously, Henry King on very new tyres compared to them off this restart, sitting in third. But it's one thing to catch the guys, it's another thing to pass them. And if they can just do enough to hold on, they'll be okay with the fact we're probably only going to get a 3-lap dash here.
It's going to be a very quick end to this race, as the safety car already pulling away once again. It's only been out for a lap and a half at this point. But once again, Aaron Gilbert is going to lead the field away. It's going to be up to him here to get on the power. Safety car in the lane. Now it's up to Gilbert as to when to go. He went early last time. Let's see how late he leaves it on this restart. Coming into the final corner. Maintaining speed, but at the entry to the final corner, away he goes and already starts pulling out the gap there over Jason Spriggs, who has not been able to nail the restart and stay with Aaron Gilbert. He is now under big pressure from Henry King as everyone gets up to speed down the front straight. King all over the back now of Jason Spriggs to try and get second place here. And you know what? With the pace that King seems to be showing, I wouldn't be surprised if he tries to make life difficult for Aaron Gilbert on the last 2 laps.
Yeah, absolutely. And King hasn't got the job done there in those first 2 turns on Spriggs, but he might set up a move at the hairpin. Looks to the inside of Spriggs on the way in, and he's going to get that move done very, very easily. Stevens tries to follow on through and gets the door shut in his face. Nearly contact between himself and Spriggs, and he's going to try and go around the outside. A little bit of door-to-door contact between Stevens and Spriggs, and looming in the background there as well is Joshua Burton. So he's going to get hung out to dry here, Stevens, possibly, if he's not careful, and nearly going to get past as well if he can't find a way on by Spriggs quickly.
Spriggs has got the widest hold in Commodore in Victoria at the moment, as that's a mistake from Daniel Stevens. Bit of oversteer through Lukey Heights, which allows Josh Burden through. Stevens tries to get him back into MG as there's a lock-up just up ahead from Henry King. Burden, though, holds on to the position, and he is back up into 4th place. Now he is going to be the one leading the charge to focus on Jason Spriggs. Daniel Stevens has got Henda and Jovanovic, the 2 Fusion sim racing cars there behind him. They could potentially double team him in these last couple of laps if he doesn't play his cards right. So Aaron Gilbert now across the line and into turn 1. He's going to be looking over his shoulder because Henry King is just reeling him in corner by corner, as there's a big lock-up from Jason Spriggs. Another lock-up as well from Brett Handa. Drivers getting the maximum out of their tyres here tonight, and then some. It looks to me like Jason Spriggs has the gap he needs over Josh Burden for the time being, as long as he doesn't make any mistakes in this part of the circuit, as there was an attempted move on the inside there. Bobby Jovanovic almost getting into the back of his teammate Brett Hender there, fortunately managing to keep the anchors on, as that is Gavin Cox also making his way through this field, having put Simon Mazzomo behind him, and now looking for a move there on Rob Carmichael.
You can literally hear the heart rate rise of Reese there with the fact his teammates nearly took each other out with Mazomo trying to get the job done on Gavin Cox. He's going to look to the inside at Lukey Heights at the bottom and trying to move done at MG, but not going to be able to get it done. Has to sit in it behind for a little bit longer, but we have to draft down the front straight, so might be able to get a move done into turn 1 on this last lap. But the white flag is in the air and it's going to be 1 to go for Aaron Gilbert. If he can just hold on for 1 more lap, he will be able to win race 1 here. Henry King is not going to let up at all. He's going to try and use these tyres that he has to his advantage, and is going to absolutely push them to the absolute limit.
For sure. The battle of the teammates, tyres versus no tyres. Lead of the championship versus second in the championship. It's all on tonight at Phillip Island. Big curb usage from Henry King through Stoner Curve. And a bit of an early turn in there for Gilbert to try and keep him behind, as trying his best to defend there is Jason Spriggs, but he gets past there by Bobby Jovanovic. And Brett Hender, as there's a spinner out in front. That looks to me like Hender, who's gone for a spin at the hairpin. It's a big shame there. A big clutter of cars coming through the hairpin. We might have to get a replay just after the race finishes, but Henry King is right on the back of Aaron Gilbert coming into Lukey Heights. He's got one more braking zone opportunity here to get past, but Gilbert goes defensive, middle of the road. Can King hold the outside? No, he cannot. His only chance now is if Gilbert makes a mistake in the last couple of corners, and if he nails that acceleration out of the penultimate turn. It seems as they come into the final corner, there's more than a car length, actually probably 3 car lengths gap between them, so King can't do anything now. Aaron Gilbert is going to take the win here in race 1 at Phillip Island, but at what cost?
Yeah, certainly at what cost is, but Jovanovic and Carmichael drag race to the line. It's going to be Jovanovic who's going to pit Carmichael just across the line to end up taking home a 5th place finish. But Carmichael was going to have to settle for 6th. The Spriggs ended up coming home in 7th after all that. Unfortunately, Mazomo 8th, Cox 9th, and Noble rounds out the top 10. We'll have a look at the Virtual Racing School replay to see what's happened here between Spriggs and the Fusion car. And it just looked like he had his nose up the inside a little bit too much, and unfortunately nose it to front contact.
Indeed, and going for a bit of a half spin there was the 364 of David Coleman up behind, I think that was Gavin Cox, right on board here with Bobby Jovanovic to see how he managed to pit Rob Carmichael at the line pretty much. Some very good pace here from Bobby, who's been out of action in the sim for a fair bit, only recently got back into it. Seems to me that reasonably consistent line there from Carmichael, but he might have actually dipped a wheel into the grass through the final turn. Either that or run out of fuel. Actually, it does look like a very compromised exit out of the final turn. I think Carmichael might have been running on fumes at that point.
Yeah, he might have just coughed out of the final corner, unfortunately. That allowed Jovanovic to get up alongside and get that move done on the run to the line. Very, very unfortunate if it was fuel related, but just not quite the exit that we will have hoped for. Will Carmichael going to be ruining that for quite some time, I bet.
Well, time for the results. The top 2 in the championship are the top 2 in the race, Gilbert and King. Joshua Burden coming back to finish P3, an excellent result there for him. Daniel Stevens will come home in P4, losing a position, but being able to regain quite a bit after taking that pit stop. Jovanovic just beating Carmichael by 0.04 of a second across the line. Jason Spriggs will come home in P7. Certainly not the result he would have been looking for after his pole position for race 1. Mazomo will come home in 8th place, which is a very good position gain for him. Gavin Cox and Mark Noble round out the top 10.
And then you're going to have Reese Harnell coming home at 11th, David Coleman at 12th, Nathan Trengarthen 13th, Hender and O'Connor round out the top 15, and the last cars on the lead lap. And then Chris Pallett 1 lap down, with Flanagan, White and Green and Delaney all multiple laps down in DNFs.
Yeah, big shame for those guys. Hopefully race 2 is cleaner for them. But we're going to have to step aside very briefly here on SimSpeed TV, because we've got the Trucking Legends series coming up. 10 minutes in the Legends Coupes. at Phillip Island. And then we've got the second of our 23-lap V8 races here tonight. I'm Reese Gardner, Cam Dance alongside me. We are SimSpeed TV. Do not go away. We'll be back very shortly.
Fantastic. This is GT racing right now.
He's got traction, he's got rhythm, both of them! Maloney!
Oh, he's taken Anderson. Anderson's up to
Oh my god! Big crash! Oh my goodness, half the field's gonna get rolled!
This is very close. These guys are going to want to make their way through the field very quickly. Oh, here we go. Oh no! That's massive! This is it! This is over! I can't believe this! Oh my god!
God, what?
And welcome back to Phillip Island, here for the V8SCOPS support series presented by RacingSims.co.nz. Round 11 of the V8SCOPS support series, round 11 of the Trucking Legends, the final time we see them on track in a 10-minute race in a championship that has been very, very entertaining throughout both the Trucks and the Legends sides of events. My name is Jay Kennedy, jumping in for Reese Gardner because Reese, of course, races in this championship. Camera Dance still in alongside me. Cam, what a race that was that we just saw, but this is going to be a load of fun. Trucking Legends has been fantastic the whole way through. We've seen multiple different winners throughout the championship. We do have a fairly big championship lead at the front for Dan Stevens, but everywhere else it's still pretty tight. But the main thing has been, this series has been thoroughly entertaining.
Yeah, absolutely has. Every single round has been very, very entertaining, both in the Trucks and in the Legends car, with the fact it's been very, very mixed up results all season long. Obviously, there's been one man who's been consistently the talking point, with it being Daniel Stevens, who leads this championship currently, but it's been a very, very exciting season of racing all along.
Definitely has, and we see the championship standings on screen there. Dan Stevens leading. Hasn't got it locked up yet, but basically just has to turn up at this and the final round in 3 weeks' time at Bathurst, which will be on the Saturday night. We'll talk about that in a moment while the drivers are just getting ready for qualifying at the present stage. But Stevens, Skrajev, Loxton, all within a mathematical chance of winning the championship. Reece Harnell's also mathematical chance. I don't think Aaron Gilbert is 8,826 points behind, though. That's some very, very rookie Photoshop work from yours truly. But the top, well, third back to fifth is rather close, but that top three still in with a shot of winning the championship based on how the points are structured. It's not over, but it's going to be very, very hard for anyone to top Daniel Stevens.
Yeah, he's had a very, very consistent run all season long, has Daniel Stevens, so it's going to be a bit of a mountain to climb to try and topple that lead that he's got at this stage. Obviously, if he has a bad round or doesn't turn up, he may end up losing that lead, but it's going to be all about just making sure you can get the points at this stage, especially if you're in those sort of areas where it's very, very close between your rivals.
We were just talking about Bathurst Weekend. Have a look at a true V8SCOPS Bathurst Weekend we've got coming up in 3 weeks' time, September 17 to 19. 3 full days / nights of racing. Friday night we'll have the next round of the flat sixes. They'll run 2 races in the same format we're seeing tonight in the V8s. On Saturday we start mid-afternoon. Next round of the Racing Sims V8 supports V8s, that being a 250k race with pit stops. Around 6 p.m. Eastern, we kick things off for the Bathurst 1000 qualifying session, 60 minutes as is tradition in this series. In between that and the shootout, we will run the final round of the Legends. Then we have shootout time, top 15 shootout, one of the most entertaining half hours we have in all of sim racing, with 15 drivers leaving it all on the track at Bathurst. And then on the Sunday, race day, 50 cars, 161 laps, and 2 drivers looking to put their names on that illustrious list of winners of the V8SCOPS Bathurst 1000.
Yeah, Bathurst race weekend is always very, very entertaining for V8SCOPS. Every year it gets better and better, and is always something I think everybody has to put in their calendar and sit down and watch, because it's just so entertaining, whether it's the support classes or whether you've got the shootout, which I think everybody actually does physically sit down and watch, because it's such an entertaining session to end up watching. And then obviously the great race itself on the Sunday, full 1,000 kilometers of racing as well. So it's going to be a very, very big weekend is that weekend, and everybody's going to be enjoying it, that's for sure.
Yep. Going to be lots of caffeine induced that weekend, as we work very, very hard to make sure that we cover each and every minute for you here on SimSpeed. But we'll talk about what's happening on track right at this moment, because the qualifying session for the Racing Sims Trucking Legends is underway. Brenton Hobson on pole at this present stage. Aaron Russell currently finds himself in second, but tell you what, not much of a gap between those two at the moment. It was only 5 thousandths of a second. It's now stretched out a little bit as Hobson's just put in a little bit of a quicker lap, but not much.
Yeah, it's still under a tenth of a second between Hobson and Russell at this stage. And surprisingly enough, both of them have done their laps with no draft as well. You'd think that around this sort of a track, you'd want to be getting a draft off somewhere, or some form of a draft off someone, which actually Leah is actually doing it right now off Aaron Russell. So I would imagine Leah's probably going to put in a very, very quick lap time at this time around, so long as he's up on the Delta. But it's very, very interesting to see the number of drivers doing clean laps clean air laps rather than draft laps.
Yeah, I'm surprised by that as well. It's not usually what we see in this series when we're seeing drivers out there trying to get lap times in, and you'll notice on the timing screen you see big yellow letters. I was going to say red. I was like, hang on, I'm not colourblind. Yellow letters beside Ben Christensen's name. That is because he is normally in race control, but he's out on track for this, as is Sean Thompson. Henry King, who was second in the last race, is in race control for this one. So fingers crossed. We haven't needed a safety car. Oh, I've just ruined it. A safety car throughout the Trucking Legends all season. So fingers crossed we continue that form. Both these and the trucks very, very sturdy. So fingers crossed we don't see them. Bathurst may be another story in a couple of weeks' time. But for this present stage, we are okay, as Reece Gardner just puts in a time to put himself into position number 8. And Aaron Russell, the P1. And he was leading Ashley Lear.
Yeah, that's a very, very confusing sight, that one. The fact that Russell's actually gone quicker and gone quickest as well with no draft, whereas actually they're only managing a 50.01. So no improvement there for Lear, but it's going to be interesting to see whether Hobson can improve here and whether he can try and top that time of Aaron Russell's. It's a 3/10 differential as well, which is around this sort of a track in these cars is actually quite a lot of time considering how little power and how little difference there is as well, with the fact that you're not really playing around with setup too much. So it's going to be fascinating to see what Howe can do here and whether he's going to be able to put himself back on top.
Exactly right, and we'll start to get a bit of an idea as he comes through this lap. 149.0 is the time he's looking to beat. Was confusing myself looking at the timing for a second. His deltas though, lap is not horrible, but I don't think he's going to improve. He's going to have to take it for one flying lap. Saying that, Aaron Russell just up the road, he may go even faster right here. So this is going to have to be an absolutely brilliant lap coming up here for Brenton Hobson.
Yeah, it certainly is going to have to be a very, very good lap. We'll see what's going to happen as Russell crosses the line. Doesn't go quicker, so no improvement there from Russell. Improvement from Lear, though. Finally, the draft working in his favour to go to P2. We'll see what Hobson can do on this final flying lap, as there's just over a minute, or just under a minute and a half, I should say, as to the end of the session. Christensen comes across the line, does a 50.2 and will put himself just in behind Daniel Stevens in at P8.
Reece Gardner jumped up to 6th, and Justin Howe, you can see there too, also jumped up positions into P number 4. Go back to Brenton Hobson. We'll keep an eye on him throughout this lap. Hasn't been able to race all of the races in the Trucking Legends. He raced a couple of truck races earlier on in the season. Has run quite a few of the Legends races, but not really in the championship fight. Unfortunately for him, it would have been great to see him fight for the championship, but hasn't quite been able to do so, just due to other commitments. As Nick Scraves decided he's done. Just pulled it off the track. Remember that too, the no escape rule in effect in this session, so as per normal V8SCOPS event rules, can't just stop and escape back to the pits. You have to drive your car back to the pits. And saying that, even if you hyperheat tyres from a big spin or something, you're going to continue on, because these tyres, they don't wear out.
Yeah, they're very, very hard tyres. They're more like a control tyre where it's shredded and not really going to be something that's going to be a problem as far as tyre wear goes. So you're going to be just trying to keep on going to burn the fuel off and try and make these things as light as you possibly can. Obviously designed more for the oval stuff, but we'll see what's going to happen here as Brenton Hobson comes through the final corner. Is this going to be an improvement, or is it not? Aaron Russell and Lear have not improved on their lap, as Hobson's going to come across the line, and no improvement.
No improvement there, but one driver that does look like he is about to improve is Reece Gardner. No, he's lost all his time in the last sector. Lost around about 4/10 on what his lap was looking like there, so it looks like, other than Sean Thompson, everyone is done. And Sean out there now with his last chance to put in a lap time better than a 1 minute 50.6. See what he can do. Looking like our race length as well will be 7 laps. We've seen a lot of 7-lap races in this series. Another 7-lap one looking like we're having ahead for us in this race here.
Yeah, obviously, well, not long, but the lap time is a little bit on the slower side in these things. Obviously, not the most amount of power or the highest amount of grip as well. So the races tend to be quite short for these little machines, as Thompson comes down the front straight to get the checker flag from Barney. Comes across the line, and it's 51.222. So no improvement there for Sean Thompson.
No improvement in the end there. So we will get our qualifying results up on screen for you in just a moment. There they are. Aaron Russell will start from pole alongside Ashley Lear. That is a Talk Inc. front row with Brenton Hobson in 3rd, Justin Howe in 4th. Sam Stride will start from 5th with Reece Gardner in 6th position. Daniel Stevens in 7th. Ben Christensen in 8th position. Then we've got Nick Scrave, Reece Harnell, Sean Thompson and Mark Noble, the 12 cars we've got in tonight's race.
And I imagine it's going to be very, very full on for all 12 cars, probably, with the fact that this track is very, very well known for its draft fest style racing, especially in these little things where draft is pretty much everything. So it's going to be very, very fascinating to see who's actually going to end up winning this race and who might end up on the podium.
100%. We'll find out very, very soon. We're just waiting for the clock for qualifying to tick down. So we have a couple of extra drivers who have jumped in for us on the Zoom feed as well. We saw Brenton Hobson during qualifying. Ben Christensen, who we might see driving the safety car later on. We might see him out there again. He's out there joining us on Zoom for this one as well. You guys that are in there just watching as well. Mazomo and Harnell have stayed in to watch the drivers race in this one. Always fun to watch drivers react to races that you're watching at the same time. I always find that just as entertaining as watching an actual race itself.
Yeah, it is sometimes actually quite enjoyable to just chill back and actually watch everybody else going to work in the other races and then getting back into the seat yourself shortly after. So good to see a number of the competitors that are normally on track a little bit earlier or later tuning in and having a quick spy to see what's going to be happening out on track. But nevertheless, we're not too far away from getting underway, and standing starts are going to be all about making sure you're not spinning your wheels off the line too much.
Yep, exactly right. It is very, very difficult to get these cars away as well. They're not used to the standing start, designed more for rolling start, so they often struggle a little bit getting off the line. See if drivers are okay getting away, or if they do have a little bit of trouble, as some drivers already absolutely revving a lot of fuel out of these fixed setups that the drivers are running. Now, I'll backtrack a little bit from what I said before about being a 7-lap race. It will be a 6-lap race, 10 minutes on the clock, but it will equate to a short race of only 6 laps. But the 6 laps that we have will be absolutely action-packed. There is no doubt about it. We always see huge moves, huge moments, and some fantastic racing here in the racingsims.co.nz. Trucking Legends. This is the Legends component of the Trucking Legends, as you may have worked out, here on SimSpeed TV. Big thank you to everyone who is watching us wherever you are around the world. It's great to have you with us here on Friday night.
Ribs are rising. Green flag is finally in the air, and we're going to get this race underway. A very, very good jump from Aaron Russell. Not a great jump from Ashley Lear, though, and Brenton Hobson is going to absolutely swarm him, and so is everybody else. Actually, the likes of Justin Howe going to get a position off Ashley Lear, and side by side is Lear going to try and go around the outside out in the marbles. Gets a little bit squirrely for good measure as well, but manages to hold on to that position off Sam Stride for the time being, but he's going to get up the inside of Justin Howe and make that work. But still, it's very much all about jostling and settling in now to try and work yourself to the front of the field, as Aaron Russell is losing that lead quickly.
Yeah, the draft is going to be very, very crucial. You can see there Hobson weaving. He doesn't know whether he wants to try and tuck in behind and try and use the draft of Russell, or worry about what's happening behind there of Ashley Lear. Lear did a good job of holding off Justin Howe, Sam Stride, and then Daniel Stevens has Reese Gardner not too far away himself. Some very, very good battles the whole way through this field. But a clean start to the race, which is great to see. As we've got a little bit of side-by-side there. That's Reese Harnell. He's got back out on track once again. Just ahead of Sean Thompson, just behind Ben Christensen. So good little battle there. As at the front, the lead is well and truly on. Ashley Lear isn't able to match the front two at the moment, of being Hobson and Russell. Although not quite able to get the move done yet, but former Supercars driver, he'll be looking to maintain this lead for another 5 laps.
Yeah, certainly will be wanting to try and hold on to this lead for all of this race if he possibly can, but I think he's going to come unstuck on that last lap if Hobson doesn't make a move in these next 4 laps or so. So be doing everything he can to try and build up a little bit of a gap, and they've actually broken away as well from the rest of the field. Have Hobson and Russell, as Ben Christensen has come down onto the lane, and looks like he might be having to serve a penalty for a possible jump start, unfortunately. So he will be a little bit disappointed with himself, but he'll be getting back out there shortly. As up the inside is Ashley Lear on just now, doing a bit of the defensive driving there to try and keep that position off Howe, and that's allowed Sam Stride to get right onto the tail and try and get a move done on Justin Howe on the way down towards through turn 3. Howe's going to have the inside for the hairpin though, but what's Stride going to be able to do? Leah goes defensive on the way in, thinks about it, parks it in the middle of the road, and Stride is not going to get the position of Howe, but Stevens is right on the tail of these guys now.
Definitely is. It's now a true 4-car battle for third position between Lear, Howe, Stride and Stevens. Of course, Howie and Stridey, they are teammates. They drive both for Lads. See on the overlay it said that Sam Stride was driving as part of the Firm Motorsport. He drives for them as part of the Porsche side of the V8SCOPS support series. Hasn't had too good a run in the Porsches, unfortunately, but been good to have Stridey out there. There's Justin Howe. Sort of in two minds at the moment. He's almost defending while trying to attack at the same time. He doesn't know which one he wants to do, and he's sort of just caught in between doing both.
He's in that situation where, you, as a racing driver, you really don't like to be in because of the fact that you're looking forward, but also having to look behind to make sure the guy behind's not trying to do an overtake. So he's doing his best at this point to try and do some defending and try and hold on to the position, but Stridey's looking like he's going to stick his nose out to the outside, not quite going to draw up alongside on the way into turn 1, and is just going to have to sit in behind for a little bit longer, but looking very, very racy at the moment is Stride. Stevens just chilling in the background as well, possibly waiting for something to happen, and he's got Reese Gardner on his tail as well. So these two are going to be catching up to the back of this little train for the final spot on the podium, and the final spot's inside the top 5 very, very quickly at this rate.
And Aaron Russell just doing enough at this stage to hold off Brenton Hodgson. I'm surprised that the draft down the front straight hasn't been more powerful. Reese Gardner looks to make a move on Daniel Stevens, who had to defend very, very aggressively there. I would have thought the draft down the front straight would have been a little bit stronger, as it's on for the lead as Hobson tries around the outside. Can't quite get it done, but he had the momentum. That means that there is a little bit of a chink in the armour of Aaron Russell.
Yeah, he's going to try and set this one up as Hobson with sitting in behind. The ticket is, well, the time is slowly reaching 0, but Aaron Russell continuing to try and do his best to hold off Brenton Hobson. Whether we're going to see any cheeky sort of moves in this last, on the last lap or not is going to be very, very fascinating to see. But actually, it's still continuing to hold off Justin Howe. Sam Strider's dropped off a little bit off the back of these guys, but should be able to get a bit of draft down the front straight and close that gap back up. But it is very, very tight and very, very smart driving from a lot of these drivers as well, with the fact that they're all just being a little bit patient and trying to work together as well.
Yeah, I think they're, as you say, they're all working together. They're just a lot of drivers waiting, I think, until the last lap. They know that the draft usually is quite strong here, so whether we're completely wrong on how much effect the draft is having, or whether they are waiting for that last lap, I'm not too sure. There's a little bit of a mistake there from Aaron Russell. Brenton Hobson almost able to put the nose in there, but not quite close enough yet. Getting quite tight between our first and second drivers. Second place driver, that is. Brenton Hobson closing the gap down in on Aaron Russell. Quite close enough yet, though, but you can feel the dives coming.
Yeah, you certainly can see the dives coming, and Brenton Hobson getting a little bit squirrely on the exit of the Honda hairpin there. You can see he's pushing very, very hard. He gets very, very close. Under brakes on the way into Siberia, but Aaron Russell with a much better exit and starts to pull away on the way down towards Hayshed, and you can see those guys behind still not quite able to close up enough and get enough of a draft off those two ahead. So doesn't look like they're quite going to be able to catch up to those front two, but if those front two start fighting, they'll find themselves on the tail and in with a shot of a win.
See that group has split into two. Daniel Stevens has dropped off and now has Reese Gardner right behind. And Leah, Howe and Stride are all in their own little battle pack. Russell has broken a little bit of a gap on Brenton Hobson, but you would feel that that is going to close down to nothing by the time they get to turn one. Across the line, and only 2.5 minutes to go. Can you believe we've only got 2 laps to go already? It's flown by this race. As Russell leads Brenton Hobson. And not much between them as Reese Gardner gets some momentum out of the last corner. He's side by side. The run down towards turn 1.
And Stevens trying to go around the outside of a race, but it's not quite going to be able to happen in the end. Possibly going to have to sit behind for 2 laps, I should say, this lap and possibly half a lap after that, with the fact that they should get the white flag next time by across the stripe, but we'll see what's going to happen. But Reese is starting to pull a little bit of a gap on Stevens here, so might find that Stevens might start to drop off the back as just up ahead. They're still fighting pretty hard.
It's probably going to work in the favour of these guys if they continue to fight in that group up ahead. You can see that the 2 cars of Howe and Stride are still battling amongst themselves. Stridey has finally got through. So the only downfall to that is look at the gap that they've let Ashley pull away while they were side by side through Siberia. Might have nearly been smarter for Howie to just back out of it and let Sam Stride go and see if they could stick together. Give Stridey a little bit of time to maybe be able to make a move. If it was a team order or a team play, give the position back right at the end, but doesn't look like there's any team orders out there in this race, which we don't mind seeing that as well. It's great to see.
Yeah, always good when you can see teammates fighting amongst themselves to out on track, and no real team orders going on is always a good thing, but we'll see what's going to happen between those 2 later on in this race as they get closer and closer to the line. White flag is in the air. Barney is throwing that thing with all his great force, and Russell has got himself a nice buffer as well over Brenton Hobson, so it'll be interesting to see what's going to happen. And with the gap he's got, he might just be safe enough, but we'll have to wait and see as Stevens still continuing to pressure the back of Reese Gardner as they come through Southern Loop, and Stevens getting a very, very nice exit on the out of Southern Loop there, and he might try and have a look at a possible move at the hairpin if he's brave enough.
Probably brave enough, but I don't think he's close enough. That's his issue. He's a little bit too far back at the moment. This is the closest battle on track, so you see just ahead there too, Justin Howe made a mistake and he's run very, very wide. Lost a little bit of ground. So the clock officially hit 0, so confirming we're on the last lap. If we stay in the order we're in right now, we'll have our 8th winner in 11 rounds of this championship. I had to count a little bit there. And Brenton Hobson, I thought, had won a race, but he had not. So whoever wins it, finishes first out of our front 5 would all be first-time winners in this series. So good way for the season to start to wrap up as we're here at Phillip Island. No move in the end there for Daniel Stevens, not quite close enough. Stridey's backed off from Ashley Lear, so it's just for the front of the field. But Aaron Russell looks like he's done enough in this race. Round 11 of the RacingSims.co.nz V8SCOPS Support Series. Round 11 of the Trucking Legends. And Aaron Russell reigns supreme, picks up the win here at Phillip Island. A great race for him. Very, very good drive. Just did enough to hold off from Brenton Hobson in second. Ashley Lear in third. The battle between Gardner and Stevens was the battle of the race for sure. And intrigued to know what happened to Ben Christensen in the end there, because that was strange for him to stop at the point that he did and have to pit at no other reasoning other than a pit lane drive-through penalty. It's the only thing I could think it could be.
Yeah, very, very odd there for Christensen to end up in a little bit of strife, and unfortunately not the race that he will have been hoping for, but a very, very solid race and result for Aaron Russell, who's come away with the win. Hobson and Lear get around out the podium with Stride and Howe 4th and 5th. Gardner and Stevens come home in 6th and 7th with Scary and Harnell and Thompson rounding out the top 10.
Yeah, and then other than that, we've got Mark Noble and Ben Christensen, who both finished the race as well. We're going to take another break, our final break here tonight on SimSpeed TV. When we come back, it will be time for the final race here tonight. 23 lapper, race 2 of the V8s. Don't go away, we'll be back very, very soon.
Travis Pastrana here. iRacing, Climb to the Clouds, Mount Washington Hill Climb available now. Check it out.
Yeah, so we're using the VRS Direct Force Pro this year. We have a wheel adapter right here, so I'm using the rim I used last year, but the motor right here produces a lot of power, a lot of precision, and it helps me, just feel the car more, feel the car a lot quicker, especially, this week we're at Sonoma. I can feel it, when it hits the curbs, any little change in the car, the wheel reacts a lot quicker than your typical gear-driven or belt-driven wheel. For example, if you're on oval and the rear tires break loose, force feedback on it corrects a lot quicker than your typical wheels. There's no resistance pretty much as far as being able to make quick corrections on the wheel. So all that, paired with how precise the wheel itself is, it makes it to where it helps you as a driver, to find that extra hundredth or thousandths of a second. So when you're getting a direct drive wheel, especially the VRS wheel, it's heavy duty. It's got good weight to it, it's not a plastic toy. It feels like you can really beat up on it. A lot of people have issues with their plastic gear-driven wheels just kind of breaking after a couple years. This thing just feels like it can go forever. The forces are really strong where if you might have to let go of the wheel if you get into the wall. You can adjust all that with the settings on it and stuff, but the wheel itself doesn't play around. It's got way more strength than you could ever need, and that's what makes it good, that you can adjust that down to whatever the car needs. So initially you'll be able to get the controller box and the motor together, and eventually you will be able to add a rim onto that option. They'll also be including a button plate on it to put on the rim to have all sorts of different buttons and functionality. Also, pedals are coming, so that's a pretty big deal as well. Hasn't been covered too much, but the goal is to also have pedals to go along with the Direct Force Pro. So that's pretty exciting. The wheel feels good. It feels very much like a real world steering wheel. You just kind of feel like what you would imagine the car to feel like. A real steering wheel in the car is very smooth, it's very direct, very quick, and that's what this wheel feels like.
Fantastic. This is GT racing right now.
He's got traction, he's got rid of the outside, both of them! Maloney!
Oh, he's taken Anderson. Anderson's up the
Oh my god! Oh! Big crash! Oh my goodness, half the field's gonna get rolled!
Six very close. These guys are going to want to make their way through the field very quickly. Oh, there we go. Oh no! That's massive! This is it! This is over! I can't believe this! Oh my god!
God, what?
You're watching the V8SCOPS support series presented by RacingSims.co.nz. Just had an interesting race there in the Trucking Legends Championship. Turns out the draft wasn't quite as strong as we thought it would be. I'm Reese Gardner, and joining me in the commentary box is Cameron Dance for race 2 of the V8s here tonight. Cam, I'm looking forward to this because we have got a field shake-up on our hands. The majority of the field have fulfilled that requirement we see in the bottom left, pitting for 4 tyres in race 1. We've still got Mark Noble, Jason Spriggs, and Aaron Gilbert left to pit here in race 2.
Yeah, so there's going to be a few drivers who are unfortunately going to have to end up having to sacrifice themselves and get a bad result in this. Well, I say a bad result, but could possibly go the other way. It could be a very good result if we get a well-timed safety car. So we'll have to see what's going to happen. But those drivers who do need to take their pit stops still are going to have to come down onto the lane one way or another to get some tires and possibly some fuel. So we'll see what happens. But race 2 is set to be a very, very good one based on race 1.
Yes, indeed. We saw some fantastic racing in the first race here tonight. This is what the weekend is going to look like. We're over 16 hours of live broadcasting here on SimSpeed TV this weekend. We've got, obviously, quite the weekend for the Bathurst 1000 on September the 17th to the 19th. These support series, well, they're all going to come together for this one. We got the finale for Trucking Legends. We've also got both flat sixes and the V8s racing, Cam, which is going to be really good to see. Usually it's been either or, but now it is both and.
Yeah, so it's going to be very, very busy for some drivers and teams who are going to have cars across the entire weekend, really, whether it be in the V8s or the flat sixes or even the likes of V8SCOPS and also the Trucking Legends. So it's going to be a very, very busy weekend for some drivers, but it's going to be a very, very eventful one, and one that I think everybody is not going to want to miss at all.
Yeah, certainly you don't want to miss it. Join us on the weekend of September 17th to 19th, Friday, Saturday and Sunday. We've got a huge amount of broadcasting on that weekend. And of course, one of my favourite parts of any V8SCOPS season, the top 15 shootout at Bathurst. That is going to be simply magnificent. But we'll go to Mount Panorama when we get to it. But now we'll turn our attention here to the V8s here at Phillip Island. We're currently in the practice session for race 2. The grid has already been set by the finishing order of race 1, and you see on the timing tower Gilbert and Spriggs there highlighted. They have yet to pit. Everyone else can just go completely free here in race 2. So there's going to be a few elements to that, Cam. Once Gilbert and Spriggs pit, yes, they will have a big time disadvantage, but they will have majorly fresh tyres compared to everyone else. And we saw how difficult these cars were to drive on old tyres in race 1.
Yeah, absolutely. If we get a late safety car, they're going to be in an absolutely prime position to take some tyres, get that pit stop out of the way with as little time loss and position loss as possible, and then try and charge their way on through the field with a new set of tyres. So it'll be fascinating to see what's going to happen. If we don't get a safety car, they're probably just going to have to chew the fat and basically deal with it, really. But we'll have to wait and see what's going to happen as to what strategy they may end up running.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this is going to be a tough one here for these drivers. Aaron Gilbert is pretty much guaranteed to start on pole for this one, thanks to his win in race 1. Henry King will be battling with him for the lead in the opening stages, but remember, Gilbert's going to have to pit. So if you're Aaron Gilbert, Cam, what do? You focus on getting the best start possible and try to run away just to lose as little time as possible in the pits, or do you try and back everyone up and make them use their tyres more?
It's certainly a very, very questionable strategy as to what you do. Obviously, if you can run away from the field and build a big enough of a gap, you might be okay. But at the same time, if you can make everybody use their tyres, then you're going to be very much better off later on in the race when you have new ones. So, yeah, it's one of those strategies that I think you have to choose which one you want to do and go with it. Otherwise, you're going to be left in a little bit of strife. But I think the main thing is just going to be all about running away and trying to build as big of a gap as possible, with the fact that we may not see a safety car.
Yeah, absolutely. We did see 2 safety cars in race 1, but we'll see how much the drivers have sorted themselves out here in race 2. Whether or not we see a safety car at all here. In terms of the weather, things have warmed up a little bit here versus the morning session that we ran to start off the night. It's now afternoon conditions, about 4:40 p.m. in sim time, and it's 22 degrees out on track at the moment, so a little bit warmer there, and the drivers will be able to get their tyres up to temperature a little quicker. But like we said in race 1, these tyres, they only get about 2 laps before they drop off in grip and in pace, and then you have a very tough time keeping it on the track, just not able to get the maximum out of the tyres that you think you can. Only 5 seconds now before we go racing here in V8s at Phillip Island. The checkered flag flies, and we'll be able to go through the starting grid momentarily. It is basically the finishing order from race 1. Barney the flagman giving his right arm a good workout, waving the flag there. As we check out the surrounds of the Phillip Island Grand Prix circuit. A truly historic venue in Australian motor racing. So good to be racing here on the iRacing service. It's Aaron Gilbert and Henry King on the front row, with Josh Burden and Daniel Stevens behind them on row 2. Bobby Jovanovic and Rob Carmichael make up the top 6. Then we go to P7. That's going to be Jason Spriggs and Simon Mazzomo alongside him. Gavin Cox and Mark Noble round out the top 10, with Reese Harnell and David Coleman 11th and 12th.
Then you're going to go over to row 7, Trengarthen and Hinder, O'Connor and Pella on row 8. Flanagan and Whiting will line up on row 9, and then you're going to go over the page. You're going to have Anthony Green being the final starter in the 19-car field for tonight.
Oh, only 5 seconds to go now until things go off here at the Phillip Island circuit. Revs rise. What a beautiful sound here. 19 Australian touring cars make their way off the starting grid, and it's a very varied start in the midfield, but Aaron Gilbert and Henry King are nice and even. Wasn't the best of starts for the likes of Simon Mazzomo. He's gotten off to a slow start, so is Daniel Flanagan and Nathan Trengarthen, but Aaron Gilbert leads the way into turn 1 and protects from Henry King on the inside. Fantastic stuff. As shuffled a little bit wide is Jason Spriggs with Rob Carmichael alongside him. Carmichael gets the position as they make their way out of Southern Loop for the first time here in race 2. No incidents yet, but we'll wait and see until they get to Honda. Daniel Stevens is going to try and lob one at the inside of Henry King for second place, and he is going to just about get it done as it's side by side between Mazzomo and Noble. Once again, a car off at the hairpin. That's Anthony Green, and he has had a pretty rough night so far.
Yeah, his night's just gone from bad to worse, unfortunately, with the fact he's ended up off the road at the hairpin. So not a good night at all, and one to forget for Anthony Green. But Aaron Gilbert at the moment doing exactly what he needs to do and is starting to pull a nice gap from Henry King and the rest of the field. Stevens is looking very, very racy on the tail of Henry King, and he's also got Joshua Burden for company as well, does Stevens. So it's very, very tightly compacted and very, very heated at the moment, and just going to be all about trying to gain positions if you can get them, but at the same time, you're not going to want to burn those tyres up too quickly.
That was David Coleman making his way past Gavin Cox, and that was for
Harnell.
Oh my goodness, yes, Harnell off into the gravel trap off the final corner. My goodness, that's a very scary spot to lose it, and looks to me like he did it by himself there. He does keep at the pace up there as the number 63 of Mark Noble now having to defend here from David Coleman, who's been making some big moves here on the first lap. Already made his way past Gavin Cox, but unfortunately not able to get the move done on the car ahead. Keeping up nice and tight through Honda, and big defensive line there from my goodness, side by side on the exit. There's 364 of David Coleman getting it done there on the number 63 of Mark Noble. Just big defensive drive off the hairpin and securing the position once again through Siberia. Very good to see. So this is how it's looking like for these positions in the middle of the field. Oh my goodness, there's been a problem for Chris Pellet there, coming into Lukey Heights, off into the gravel trap. He keeps it out of the wall and no damage, which is good to see, but I think the car just got a little crossed up on him there.
Yeah, just getting a little bit out of shape, unfortunately, and ending up with some wheels in the grass and gravel and dropping a few places as a result. But at the front, Henry King has actually closed that gap back down to Aaron Gilbert. Was 3/10 quicker last lap. So Henry King is a lot of pace at the moment, possibly going to be with a little bit of hurt tyre later on if he keeps pushing as hard as he is. But Carmichael up the inside of Spriggs, 2 wheels in the dirt, why don't you as well, but manages to just pull it up in the end. So Carmichael takes that, well, keeps that position off Spriggs, and now Mazomo's right on the tail of these guys in the hunt.
This is a proper battle here between all of these guys. My goodness, into the hairpin they come, and Carmichael heading up this pack. He's got Bobby Jovanovic and Josh Burton, the two Fusion Sim Racing teammates, up ahead of him, and don't know if he'll be able to make up that gap. For the time being, it seems that Jason Spriggs is safe from Simon Mazomo. Mez had a bit of a wiggle there, as out of Siberia, Michael Whiting around the outside of Mark Noble, Gavin Cox and Tom O'Connor, side by side into Hayshed. This never really works, but they do manage to just make it through side by side. O'Connor just ahead through Lukey Heights and maintaining the position around the outside, which becomes the inside for MG. It's a pretty good move there from Tom O'Connor.
Yeah, very, very nice move from O'Connor there to get that position off Cox. And one that, well, usually doesn't quite always work, but has worked in this case, and very, very impressive to hold it around the outside and get that one done. So he'll be very much happy with that move, as Mark Noble's made his pit stop in this race. But it looks like Jason Siggs still continuing to pressure the back of Rob Carmichael here, and starting to fall a little bit into the clutches of Mazomo as well. Mazomo just over a 10th quicker last lap than Spriggs, so we'll see what's going to happen, but it's looking very racy at the front as well as up the inside is Burton on Daniel Stevens, and Stevens going to have to hang it around the outside and let that one go. So very, very late and tight move there from Joshua Burton.
Indeed, but both he and Daniel Stevens, being the seasoned racers they are, they know to give each other just the right amount of space and not much more. So they both managed to get out of that cleanly, and Burton is now ahead here on lap 4. Still got quite some time to go, as Bobby Jovanovic fancies a look at Daniel Stevens as well. Maybe gives him a little bump coming into MG, but not much success there for the time being. Jovanovic very smooth on the wheel coming out of the penultimate corner, just soaring away at the wheel as the car tries to get away at him through the final turn, just catching the grass on the exit of the turn. Does not give him a great run there versus Daniel Stevens, but the draft should keep him well within attacking range. Just going to have to wait until the second half of the lap to do that, as Simon Mazomo having another go there at Jason Spriggs, trying the inside at Southern Loop. Spriggs locks up, runs out wide, and that's going to be move done there for Simon Mazomo. Finally, he has passed Jason Spriggs, but for how long? Spriggs is looking very racy and might come back at him in a couple of laps' time.
Yes, he might come back at him in a couple of laps' time if he's not careful, but Mazomo very level-headed and knows what he's got to do here. He just needs to look after the tyres and slowly but surely make his way forward, and he's got Carmichael just in front of him as well, so he's got something to chase and someone to benchmark off as well, as far as what his tyres are doing and what pace he's got as well.
So these three now almost equidistant. Spriggs picking up the throttle just a little bit more out of Lukey Heights and going for another move there on Simon Mazomo, but Mez manages to carry enough momentum through the corner to stay ahead and still pressure the back of Rob Carmichael. Fantastic little battle that we're seeing here for the 6th position out on track at the moment. We should check in as well with the battle for the lead too, because Aaron Gilbert still relentless in his defense here against Henry King. King likewise relentless with his attack. These two have been streaking away from the rest of the field ever since Josh Burden made that move on Daniel Stevens. These two HJR cars have been strutting their stuff out in front. Remember, of course, that Gilbert has yet to pit tonight, so he is 100% certainly going to lose this lead.
Yeah, he's certainly definitely going to be losing this lead, unfortunately.
Oh.
As Momo gets past Carmichael. Carmichael tries to come back at him, gives him a little bit of a bump and another bump, and he's got him loose, and that's Mazomo getting very out of shape. He's managed to just hold on with Spriggs. Is going to get on by, though, as a result of all that little tussling going on, and Mazomo's going to hold on to the position, so Spriggs is going to gain a position out of that. Mazomo's just going to do enough to hold on there.
Yeah, goodness me. The Fishy Motorsport driver having to back out of that one. Let's have a virtual racing school replay. See how Mazomo got it done. It was a great move up the inside at the Honda hairpin. Still a bit of room for Rob Carmichael to go up the inside, at least he thought so. Went in a little bit too deep and gave Mazomo 1, 2, 3 taps. Had to get on the brakes, and that allowed Jason Spriggs right back by him. So now Carmichael's at the back of this train, and fortunately escaping a penalty, though it was very close to Mazomo getting spun. Meanwhile, it looks like they're starting to bring in a few friends here. We've got the big pack behind, headed up by the likes of Michael Whiting. Then you got Coleman, Cox, O'Connor, and Hender in a 4-car train behind that. So there's going to be quite a few moves being made here, as that's a very early move to the inside by, I believe that was Tom O'Connor. No, it was not. It was David Coleman who went right for the inside. These guys have got Brett Hender right on the back of them here. This could certainly be quite the mix-up as the two leaders make their way into MG. Daniel Stevens, the meat in the Fusion Sim Racing sandwich here, with Burden ahead and Jovanovic behind. Mazomo, Spriggs and Carmichael. Oh, Rob getting a little bit leery in the braking zone there. A slight lock-up on the downhill.
Yeah, a little bit of a lock-up there, and going to hurt that front tyre as a result of it, that lock-up, but going to continue to push on. He's lost a little bit of time as well to Spriggs and co. He's going to have his teammate of Michael Whiting not too far behind as well, so possibly see a change of position between those two teammates at some point.
Not too sure what that gesture was from Rob Carmichael, but maybe he's a little dissatisfied that Mazomo and Spriggs are starting to stretch their legs and get away from him a little bit, as Aaron Gilbert actually managing to yield that position there to Henry King at the hairpin. So we have a new race leader here, and with Aaron Gilbert now out of the lead, maybe now is a good time for him to try and take his pit stop, or maybe he'll try and wait until the very end, wait for the rest of the field to get spread out. This is how King got it done. A little bit of a tighter line and slightly better acceleration out of the southern loop. Flat out through Stoner and moving to the inside. He believed he had the run, and Gilbert saw him coming and pretty much just let him go there. It was a slight over-under on the exit of the hairpin, but once that move was made, the lead was entirely secured. So King will continue on as it's side by side in the final corner between O'Connor and Coleman. They just about bang wheels. O'Connor has to unwind the steering a little bit there to avoid the contact with David Coleman, as it looks like Jovanovic now up the inside of Daniel Stevens down the front straight. There's a big puff of smoke up ahead. Is that a car off? Yeah, just about. Is that?
It was actually
oh
the two teammates coming together.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so there's been some big drama here at the front of the field, which we will catch on the Virtual Racing School replay. Josh Burden has been promoted into second place. King just lost it by himself. The teammates did not come together. And you know what? I think I could see that happening from a few laps ago, because when King was following Gilbert before, I was watching them on my end, and I noticed just out of turn 1, King was getting a little bit too much oversteer. And it looks like that's happened again as David Coleman has come together with, is that O'Connor? It is. Oh my goodness. So, Fishy Motorsport and Penske Racing Shocks NZ come together. There's a third car off here at the hairpin. Who is that? It's Daniel Flanagan. He's been having a bit of trouble here tonight as well, but goodness me. O'Connor and Coleman potentially coming together here at the hairpin. Let's take a look at how it happened.
Yeah, so both obviously running the outside and then just very, very late attempted a move that looked like it never was going to happen, unfortunately, for O'Connor. And sadly, both drivers probably damaged and one facing the wrong way as a result.
Yeah, didn't look like that was ever going to work there for Tom O'Connor. He was barreling into the corner. Coleman has had a couple of further issues, another slide at MG, and he's probably very unhappy with Tom O'Connor after that. O'Connor might have a few penalty points coming his way after this night of racing. But of course, can't take much away here from O'Connor. He had a pretty solid night so far. This is the battle for the top 5. We've got Aaron Gilbert out in front there, Joshua Burton and Henry King completing the podium positions as they stand, and it's Jovanovic and Stevens up behind them. Quite the battle here. Remember that we still got to wait for Aaron Gilbert to take his pit stop, but of course we did see Mark Noble clear his stop earlier on in the night. Or earlier on in the race, rather. It was, I think, around lap 5, lap 6 or thereabouts that Mark Noble cleared it. So we still have Spriggs and Gilbert yet to take their stops. And there we go. There's Aaron Gilbert making his way towards the pit lane. Now let's see just how far down he drops here. He'll already have had maximum points for the win in race 1. How many points is he going to be able to get together in race 2? Spriggs stays out.
Yeah, so Spriggs is going to continue on his way, staying out a little bit longer to see what he can do. Is up the inside of Mazzomo with a very, very late move is Michael Whiting, so he's going to take that position and move into 6th place off Mazzomo. Out of the pit lane it comes Aaron Gilbert. He's going to rejoin just in behind Nathan Trengarthen. He might lose a position to Flanagan as well, but looking like he's just going to hold on and he'll slot into 13.
I'm so sorry to cut you off there, Cam, but Mark Noble has just had a spectacular incident. He literally jumped over the berm after getting some oversteer out of Siberia. This is definitely worth a virtual racing school replay, which we are going to go to right now. That's what happened to him there. Just managed to clear the bridge over the circuit, but all 4 tyres off the ground, sailing through the air, and that was all because of a bit too much of a spirited power delivery. Take another angle of it here. Number 63 of Mark Noble. It's a shame for him. He cleared his pit stop, so he was going to be on for reasonable finish there, but the car just sent towards the berm on the inside of the circuit there, and he is still stopped. He's managed to actually make it off the berm, but he is looks like he's managed to get going now. So we avoid another safety car here tonight. Still, that's a very damaged Ford Falcon, and I don't even want to think about the state of the suspension as Gilbert starts to make some moves here. He's just made his way past Nathan Trengarthen there at the end of this lap.
It's fascinating to see how well these tyres are going to be able to work for Gilbert here, and whether he's going to be able to make anything of it. Probably going to struggle to try and get anywhere near a top 10 at this stage, with Kenda quite a ways up the road, but he'll try doing what he can. But Henry King has lost another spot now to Jovanovic and on this lap, and at this rate he's probably going to lose one to Daniel Stevens as well.
Yeah, I'm not too sure what's happened to Henry King here. That happened earlier on, actually. It happened at the end of lap 10. He actually ran wide out of the final corner, and that's what allowed Jovanovic to get on by him. So He's still right on the back of what is now a Fusion Sim Racing 1-2, but he'll certainly be ruining those mistakes. He's already made a couple here today and lost himself valuable time. If it weren't for that slide at Southern Loop and then running wide off the final corner to let Jovanovic by, he'd probably be out in the lead by a mile at the moment. As we see Mr. Spriggs still staying out on track, and I think he's going for the one of the strategies that I talked about in the lead up to this second race, just running as long as possible, waiting for the field behind you to spread out so that you don't lose as much time, or hopefully you'd come out in a battle. Here then is the view on board from Bobby Jovanovic, looking back at Henry King through the fearsome Stoner corner. King pulling out for a bit of a look up the inside. No intention of really making the move there, but just to let Jovanovic know he is there. The lights are on the cars meanwhile, as we've just gone up to 5 minutes past 5 p.m. in sim time. It is now too dark for those lights to not be on, which changes things a little bit here for the drivers.
Yeah, it certainly does change it a little bit as things that start to get a little bit on the darker side compared to before, where they had the help of the sun setting to light the track up and everything. But as we get closer and closer to the end of this race, it's going to start to get a little bit more darker and darker. But Daniel Stevens continuing to try and work his way towards the back of Henry King. A little bit of a gap to him now, but he'll do everything he can to see what he can do. If those top three start to fight, then he's going to be right back in the thick of it.
Indeed. It's been a pretty solid night from Daniel Stevens, as this is a replay of Simon Mazzomo getting passed by Gavin Cox, losing the spot there. So Gavin Cox now up into 7th place. Both he and Mazzomo are now at 2 spots from where they started, so another solid run from those two drivers, and they stay together on track. But this battle for the top 4 is absolutely scintillating right now. Burden in the lead, Jovanovic in 2nd, King 3rd, Stevens 4th. Well, Daniel Stevens starting to drop off the back of these guys just a little bit, and running wide on the entry to the Honda hairpin is not going to help matters for the Kiwi, but he still stays within striking distance of these three. And looking at how close they are, if they come together, he will be able to take advantage of that. But all of these guys know what clean racing is like, and they know what they want out of tonight. So I'm sure they will keep their raciness reasonably in check, at least until the last few laps come around. Jovanovic a little bit defensive versus Henry King, a slight lock up there, but gets the car rotated on the inside curb and keeps King behind. Bobby's doing a good job here of playing rear gunner for Josh Burden, not allowing Henry King to get by, and that's allowing Burden now to streak away in the lead.
Yeah, Burden starting to build a little bit of a gap to his teammate behind, and also Henry King as well. It'll be interesting to see what King's going to decide to do here. Not going to be close enough to get a move done, so he'll have to sit behind for another lap. Now under 10 laps to go, so he's going to need to start to think about making a move as Henry King if he wants to get the 2nd place off him, and if he wants to get the lead of the race back off Joshua Burden as well.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a tall order at this stage. The tyres are definitely past their prime now that we're on lap 15, 9 laps to go. And Burden far up enough in front that, you know, he can afford to make a couple of mistakes, like the one he just made, a little bit wide of the Honda hairpin, and still be able to stay well ahead of Henry King. In terms of lap times, well, King very close to Burden, actually beating him by 0.03 of a second. So King, you can tell, certainly still has the pace to battle for the lead of this race. It's just Bobby Jovanovic is frustrating him a little bit.
Yeah, he certainly will be frustrating him a little bit with the fact that he's just not able to find a way on by very easily or at all at this stage. So he'll be just trying to do everything he can to see if he can get some form of a pass done. He need to do it sooner rather than later, especially with the fact that the tyres are going to start to deteriorate more and more as they get closer and closer to the finish.
Well, 8 laps to go now. Burden in the lead still as King goes for a big old move side to side. Just trying to psych out Bobby Jovanovic there. Of course, turn 1, not usually a place where you see big overtaking moves unless there's an incredibly good draft or someone's made a mistake out of the final corner. King getting a little wiggly is right here between Brett Hender and the 1-2-4 of Rob Carmichael. That is a move there for Hender. And then up into 9th place. So we have 3 Fusion Sim Racing cars here in the top 10. It's going to be a very good night for that team. It's also a very good night for the HJR squad. They already have the win in race 1. Henry King coming home in 2nd in race 2 as, oh, goodness me. Hender still battling hard here with Rob Carmichael. Carmichael gets up the inside into Siberia. Can Hender hold it around the outside? He certainly can. Gets on the throttle a little bit better. Car straightened up a tiny bit sooner and keeps the position there through Hayshed. A little virtual racing school replay of that one. Let's see here on board with Rob Carmichael. So you can tell from this point on, he's thinking, I've got a bit of a run here on Brett. I can go for a move here when we get to the 100-meter marker. Hender goes defensive. Carmichael a bit later on the brakes on the racing line. Holds on. Tries to, at least, around the outside. But fortunately, Hender a little bit too good there on the outside of Siberia for Carmichael to really do anything. And Siberia is one of the few corners around this track where the outside line, you can really play with it, and you can really stake your claim to a position.
Yeah, you certainly can. There's a battle for 2nd place going on. At the moment, Henry King's got a run on Bobby Jovanovic, but Jovanovic is going to go defensive. Stevens going to sneak up the inside, nearly force it 3 wide. He's going to get the inside of Henry King, though, but he's going to drop alongside and have to go around the long way at Siberia. Not going to be able to get a move done there, but going to try and set up the exit as best as he can. King actually carrying a little bit of right front panel damage as well, so that's going to hurt him in a straight line here, but Stevens nearly had the move done there, but King coming under a lot of pressure at the moment from Stevens.
That was some great driving from all 3 of them through Honda and Siberia. They all gave each other room. They all kept their distance. That's what we like to see in online racing. Everyone living to fight another day, or another lap in this case. Jovanovic with a very good exit there out of the penultimate corner. And then for the final sweeping left-hander, just avoids getting it onto the grass, but King, it seems, has a very good run here. I think Jovanovic might have had to lift out of that. He's going to go defensive into turn 1, but King is already by him by the time they get to the turning point, but Jovanovic is going to stake his claim here for the position. They barely avoid rubbing panels. King holds on for the position. What great racing.
Yeah, absolutely unbelievable move by Henry King to pull that one off with the smallest of gaps to the edge of the track in anything you could imagine there. But Stevens now hot on the tail of Jovanovic here. Looks up the inside at the hip and locks the inside front, has to pull it up. Only just and nearly makes contact, but that was very, very close. But you can tell Stevens is really wanting to get a move on here and knows he's got a shot at a podium.
Yeah, you can barely tell that the adrenaline is flowing there as well. That's a great exit for Jovanovic out of Siberia, and he is going to get Henry King through Hayshed round the outside. I am loving this battle for 2nd. This is the kind of racing that we were looking forward to seeing here at Phillip Island. Brilliant stuff between the 2 Falcons and the Commodore. Stevens trying to sneak up the inside of Henry King at MG, goes for the tight line. King gives him room. There was just maybe a millimetre or so of overlap between the 2 of them, but again, they remain in the same positions here coming onto the start-finish straight. Now, Jovanovic will not want to make that same error once again as Spriggs avoids the pit lane once more. He's probably going to leave it until the very final lap here to go for the move, as Stevens now fancies a bit of a look up the inside of Henry King at turn 1. It's not going to happen that time around. And King once again holds on over the rise and then the dip through Southern Loop.
He's going to survive one more lap is Henry King, but Stevens is very, very racy and is wanting to get that move done now rather than later. He knows he's got the pace over King to get that move done as well, but just can't quite seem to get that little bit extra that he needs, or put himself in the position to get that position off Henry King. And I'd say, based on the fact that he's had a few lockups as well, that front tyre is going to be well and truly burnt up and hurting badly with these last few laps as well.
Yeah, we're definitely at the stage in the race now where the tyres are crying out for some mercy here. Through MG for the 19th time. A slight mistake from Jovanovic. The rear end got loose on the turn in. It's going to allow King to round him up here through the final turn, but Jovanovic puts the power down very nicely, just keeping him ahead. But here's where the draft is going to come into play for Henry King. They all managed to avoid the grass on the exit of the final turn, but you see King starting to reel in Bobby Jovanovic inch by inch here. Doesn't elect to go for the move at the corner though, just not alongside, and no chance of getting the move done that time around. Slight mistake too from Daniel Stevens as King pushes very hard into the braking zone for Southern Loop. Bobby Jovanovic is just looking over his shoulder. No problem for Josh Burton though. This battling is allowing him to skip away here in the lead. He now leads by 2.2 seconds, and all he's got to do now is cruise home, keep it between the white lines off the grass. Bobby Jovanovic would love to secure a Fusion Sim Racing 1-2 here. This is the battle of his life for sure.
Yeah, he's certainly done very, very well, has Jovanovic, I should say, to hold on to second place here from Henry King and Daniel Stevens, who have done a lot of hard work. They've pushed him hard as well to try and get position off him, but he's done an extremely good job at defending and putting his car in the right places that he needs to. He has Jovanovic to currently hold on to second. He's only going to have to do it for 3 more laps if he's going to bring it home in second place, but whether Henry King and Daniel Stevens are going to have anything left in the tank is going to be the big question, that's for sure.
Indeed. Well, going to be 3 laps to go here as finally Jason Spriggs goes for the lane. Now, Aaron Gilbert, winner of race 1, he pitted and is now up into 10th place. Let's see where Jason Spriggs comes out of it. He's just stopped in the box now. As we follow on here, Aaron Gilbert, he's going to streak by at full racing speed. Spriggs, pit stop is done, and it was a 10th quicker than than Aaron Gilbert's pit stop, but no dice there. He's lost the position as Stevens up the inside of King now. Up into 3rd place out of Honda. That looked like a pretty textbook overtaking maneuver there.
Yeah, very, very nice move from Stevens to get that one off Henry King, and Henry King will be a little bit disappointed with the fact that at this stage he's probably going to come away with a 4th place finish. But that said, he is going to gain points over Aaron Gilbert, quite a few as well, with the fact Gilbert is all the way down in 9th at the moment. So we'll have to see if Henry King can put up one last fight here on Stevens and Jovanovic possibly, but whether Stevens is actually going to be able to get on by Jovanovic is probably going to be the big question with the pace he's had in these last few laps.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Bobby's going to be looking over his shoulder here. Stevens approaches. He's well within draft range down the front stretch as we now have 2 laps to go here at Phillip Island. The track gradually getting darker as the sun dips below the horizon. These guys are almost racing into night, currently in dusk conditions here. Have a look at how much Stevens reeled in Bobby Jovanovic through those first couple of turns, as that's a mistake from Henry King. Big oversteer moment on the exit of Southern Loop. Those tyres are absolutely gone. I think King's done absolutely everything he can here. He just needs to preserve that car and bring it home as Stevens locks up in his pursuit of Bobby Jovanovic. They both run half a car width wide of the apex at the Honda hairpin. So Jovanovic allowed a little bit of reprieve there, maybe a bit wide on the entry into Siberia, but he nails the exit and continues to keep that gap nice and stable at about 0.4 of a second. This is going to be the final lap of all these drivers' sim racing careers, I would think, because they've been battling so hard all race. I'm sure they've been having a ton of fun as well, just as we've been having a ton of fun up here in the commentary box at SimSpeed TV. So then, the white flag will come out for Josh Burden in the lead of this race, but the battle is well and truly for second. What can Daniel Stevens do to try and get past Bobby Jovanovic? Can Bobby defend from this double-pronged attack from Stevens and Henry King? Does King have anything left in the tank, anything left on the tyre tread to try and get a second place back, even a podium finish? It remains to be seen. Through the first turn, sorry. Bobby Jovanovic just a little bit wide in the mid-phase, gets a bit of a bump from Daniel Stevens, who seems to have a lot of good mid-corner grip there through the medium speed. And he might be lining up a move here at the Honda hairpin. He has the capacity here. Bobby Jovanovic goes defensive. Stevens gets alongside when they get to the turn-in point. They both lock up once again. Henry King sees the opportunity and gets alongside Stevens for the run into Siberia. He's just ahead as they get to the braking zone, but he's going to have to stay wide there and let Stevens go. Bobby Jovanovic, a slight bit of oversteer. It doesn't harm him though. Stevens was probably a bit hesitant getting on the throttle with King alongside him. For now, it seems that these positions are secured, but they still have one heavy braking zone to go here at MG. Jovanovic is far enough ahead, though, that he's able to maintain it. And Stevens and King, that's probably going to be the battle for third coming through the final couple of corners. But out in front, Josh Burden. What a drive here from the Tasmanian. Certainly had an excellent run here at Phillip Island. He is going to take the win here in race 2, and Bobby Jovanovic is going to fend off Daniel Stevens and Henry King for a Fusion Sim Racing 1-2. Stevens, though, should be reasonably chuffed there with a podium finish. Meanwhile, Jason Spriggs battling with Chris Pellet here. And, sorry, it's Rob Carmichael that's in front of him. Pellet's actually behind him. It seems for the moment that Rob Carmichael has secured that position, or has he? Spriggs might get a run at him across the line. Is he going to beat him? Oh, I think he just managed to.
Yeah, it looks like he just managed to do it. In the end, it was a very, very weird moment there for Carmichael. Not quite sure what actually happened. He got a very terrible run out of the final corner as well, and just ended up losing out across the line. So 2 races in a row, Carmichael not having the greatest run out of the final corner and costing himself a position at the line.
Well, here are the results for race 2 then. By 3.2 seconds, Josh Burden takes it over his teammate Bobby Jovanovic. Daniel Stevens completes the podium, and Henry King completing the top 4. Strong driving from all 4 of those guys, and some fantastic racing in the battle for second. I loved every moment of that. Michael Whiting completing the top 5, making up 10 positions. That's a great drive from Michael. Gavin Cox in P6. Simon Mazzomo, another top 7, top 8 finish for the 051, with Brett Hender coming home in 8th place. Aaron Gilbert, race 1 winner, 9th, and Jason Spriggs rounding out the top 10. That is what not taking the pit stop in race 1 gets you.
Yeah, it certainly does. Carmichael comes home in 11th, Pellet 12th, and then you go back to Reese Harnell, Daniel Flanagan, and David Coleman to round out the top 15. Nathan Trengarthen comes home in 16th as the final car on the lead lap, with Tom O'Connor, I should say, Mark Noble, Anthony Green, unfortunately, all DNFs.
Yeah, big shame there for O'Connor, Noble, and Green. They would certainly have been on for a reasonable result here tonight, but everyone bringing it into the pits now after the conclusion of a great night of racing here at Phillip Island. We'll bring the podium finishers in for an interview very, very soon. But let's just reflect for a moment, Cam, on this night of racing. I think it certainly sets the stage for the Phillip Island 500 and V8SCOPS on Sunday. You can expect, I think, a lot of the same from the current gen Australian touring cars and some of the best drivers in Australian sim racing, working out those drafts and just trying their best to keep those rear ends in check.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's provided some really, really good racing as this track, and just all the various different variabilities of this race, and in these cars as well, that it's just provided some really, really good racing all night long.
It absolutely has. Well, it looks like we got the first of our drivers in for an interview. P3 in race 2, Daniel Stevens. Welcome, Dan. Congratulations on that podium, but you certainly had to work for it.
Oh, race! That was an awesome race. That was. I'm real chuffed with that one. It's one of my top 3 races that I've had in a very, very long time.
Indeed, I can hear a bit of myself there. You're listening to the broadcast while you're racing, Dan. That battle with Jovanovic and King, it was really good to see the amount of respect that you guys had, giving each other that space. But I think it also really goes to show how good Phillip Island is for racing. There's so many lines available through a lot of these corners.
Yeah. Can you ask that question to me again on Sunday? Because I'm going to do the ZB on Sunday, so that's going to be a totally different story about racing around with that car.
Yeah, I'm sure it will be. So, I mean, let's get a bit of perspective then from you as a regular driver of these cars, at least in an enduro sense, and in the V8s. What is the main difference between the modern ZB and the VF that you raced tonight?
The biggest thing with the VF and the FG, I would say, is these cars have side bite, and you can drive them hard and not lose control of the car. Like, you can brake deeper, you can power out of the corners easier. Yeah, setup's got something to do with it as well, but it's just got side bite. It's something with the tires on this car and the geometry of the car that works really, really well. But then with the ZB, it's ass happy, that's all.
Yeah, I suppose so. Well, either way, a pretty strong night for you, and I think taking the pit stop in race 1 certainly secured it for a lot of drivers today.
Yeah, when I saw Henry King drop in, I thought, oh yeah, it's prime time to do it, because he's usually pretty good with the old strategy, so you can't go wrong by following that guy. So I just did what he did, and it turned out all right.
Indeed, it did. Well then, we're going to give you a moment here, Dan, to thank who you want to thank from your spot on the podium, who gets it done for you at MFR.
Yeah, of course, the boys at Middle Finger Racing, top bunch of blokes, so guys. WP Concrete Team, Virtual Car Art, which is actually taken over now by Danny Vassell, who does a lot of artwork and stuff like that, and Mad As Designs and Snap-on.
Daniel Stevens there, P3 here in race 2 at Phillip Island. Next driver interview, we're going to be talking to our P2 finisher, Cam. You stood by with Bobby Jovanovic.
Yeah, very, very solid result. You had to work for it in those last few laps, but a very, very solid result, Bobby.
Yeah, it was good to be back, and yeah, definitely those last few laps were hard work, and I really enjoyed it. So it's good to be back.
Now, obviously, in those last few laps, we did see you sort of struggle a little bit with trying to hold off the charge from Dan and also Henry in the later part. Were you struggling with tyre at all, or was it just the way that the race was playing out and the way that it all went?
I think I probably used my tyres up a little bit too early when I saw Henry and Dan kind of scrapping at the start, and kind of wanted to get up to Josh and kind of see if we could walk away. And rears through the last corner were not good, and but I was pretty good under brake, so pretty much where Henry and that were quite good. I was probably quite good on the opposite sides of the track. So luckily, was able to hold on.
So obviously one more round, well actually I should say next round we head to Bathurst for what's going to be the support card for the 1000. Are we going to expect to see you there and hopefully have a strong result?
Yeah, you can't say no to Bathurst, so yeah, we'll be there having some fun.
Well, before we let you go, just any thanks and any shout outs you want to give?
Just to Scotty Stevens and Fusion Sim Racing for helping us throughout this week, and it's kind of good to be back in the sim and doing some races in these categories.
Well, there you have it, Reese. Very, very happy Bobby Jovanovic, and I believe you're standing by with our race winner.
I am indeed. Josh Burden now joins us in the commentary box. Welcome, Josh. Congratulations on that victory. Certainly a great result to lift your spirits there.
Yeah, thanks, guys. I'm pretty happy with that one. I just tried to hold a lap time there, look after the tyres, and towards the end I was managed to drive away a bit when the other guys were battling. So, yeah, I'm pretty happy.
Yeah, tyres were a very big point of contention here tonight. We did hear from Simon Mazzomo that the tyres drop off after about 2 laps. Did you feel the same way?
Yeah, for sure. You sort of your first 2 laps were your quickest, and then dropped off half a second. Then it sort of stayed there for what we found. And then towards the end of the race, they really dropped off the cliff if you didn't look after them. So you just had to look after them to start with, and it was all right.
We've already heard from Bobby that he'd like to race at the support card for the 1000 when that comes around in September, and it seems that behind the scenes at Fusion Sim Racing, you guys were putting a lot of effort into tackling this round of the V8SCOPS support. So all up, a very good result for the team, and I suppose you would like to carry that into future weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we put quite a few practice sessions together just to get ourselves a good setup. So a couple of guys went a couple of different ways, but we all ended up about the same. So yeah, we'll have a crack at Bathurst and see how we go.
Well, certainly got a good run of form coming into it. A 1-2 finish for the team here in race 2. Who would you like to thank for it?
Simrigs.com, Psychonic Solutions, Grip Engineering, Clip Signage, and Dalecaster Plastering. And yeah, just all the guys that put in effort during the week to get our setups kind of where they are. So it was good.
Indeed, setups definitely seemed like in a very good place indeed. That's Josh Burden there, P3 in race 1, P1 in race 2. Fantastic result there for the Tasmanian. Well, Cam, I think it's time to bring an end to proceedings for tonight. Don't forget, guys, we've got the Bathurst 1000 coming up on September 17th to 19th, and over 16 hours of live broadcasts. I'm going to be there for the whole weekend. Lockie Mansell is going to be joining me in the commentary box for the Sunday, the Bathurst 1000. Really looking forward to that one, Cam.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be an awesome race on an awesome weekend. Can't wait for it, and be looking forward to seeing who's going to be ending up taking out this weekend and the run onto Bathurst.
Indeed, that is the point there. You won't have to wait till Bathurst to get more V8SCOPS action, because on Sunday we have the Phillip Island 500. Oh my goodness, I am hyped for that. It's going to be a fantastic weekend here on SimSpeed TV, and we hope that you join us for it. Don't forget also, tomorrow night we have the Virtual Racing School GT Sprint Series at 10 p.m. Australian Eastern Time. That's going to be our weekend here on SimSpeed TV. So, it's time for us to say goodbye. I'm Reese Gardner, Jay Kennedy on production, and Cameron Dance with me in the commentary box. A big thanks once again to racingsims.co.nz for their support of this series. Certainly, it's been a great year for V8SCOPS, with the closest championship we've seen in a while, and V8SCOPS supports have absolutely been going off throughout the year. We still have a few rounds left of V8SCOPS supports to go, but the finale for Trucking Legends is going to take place at Bathurst, so let's hope for an exciting conclusion to that season. From all of us here at SimSpeed TV, we say thank you for watching, and goodbye.
This is fantastic. This is GT racing right now.
He's got traction, he's going the outside of both of them! Maloney!
Oh, he's taken Anderson. Anderson's up to
Oh my god! Oh, big crash! Oh my goodness, half the field's gonna get rolled!
SIX very close. These guys are going to want to make their way through the field very quickly. Oh, there we go. Oh no! That's Mathis! This is it! This is over! I can't believe this! Oh my god!
God, what?